Dylan Thompson stands before the towering ancient Mecha worm, his small human frame dwarfed by the massive biomechanical construct that stretches 12 kilometers beneath New Eden's main settlement. The 13-year-old's hands tremble as he clutches his rejected application to the prestigious Krenim Academy, the blue-scaled administrator's dismissive words still ringing in his ears. Primitive human speculation, Director Vax had declared mere hours ago, his scaled face contorting with disdain as he reviewed Dylan's detailed research on the worm's neural interface systems. The young archaeologist Hera had tried to interject, her eyes bright with recognition of the potential in Dylan's theories, but the other administrators had silenced her quickly. The rejection stings, but Dylan has no time to dwell on it. Red warning lights flash across the colony's alert systems, casting an eerie glow across the exposed head segment of the ancient construct. The dormant power core, silent for a century despite the Krenim's most advanced attempts at activation, has begun an unexpected power sequence. Dylan recognizes the energy signature immediately. It matches exactly what his father James, a maintenance engineer, had documented during his routine infrastructure scans. The same scans the Krenim authorities had dismissed without consideration. Now, as evacuation sirens blare across New Eden, Dylan realizes the colony's very foundation threatens to collapse under the growing power surge. Through the chaos of fleeing colonists, Dylan spots Hera breaking away from the evacuation crowd. She races toward him, her blue scales reflecting the emergency lights. "Dylan, we need to go," she calls out, but stops short when she sees the determination in his eyes. The neural interface panel Dylan has studied for months lies exposed before him, its ancient circuits humming with renewed energy. 30 years of Krenim presence on Earth has taught humanity much about advanced technology, but Dylan's research suggests something the blue-scaled species never considered, that human consciousness might synchronize with the construct in ways their rigid technological approaches cannot. As the ground trembles beneath their feet, Dylan steps forward. Behind him, Hera watches with growing realization that this human child's unorthodox approach might be their only chance to prevent disaster. The ancient Mecha worm systems pulse with increasing power, threatening everything the colony has built. But where the Krenim see only danger, Dylan sees possibility, the chance to prove that humanity's unique perspective might unlock secrets that have resisted an advanced civilization's efforts for over a century. Dylan reaches for the neural interface, his father's maintenance scans and months of rejected research giving him the confidence to attempt what no one else has dared. The fate of New Eden now rests in the hands of the very human child its prestigious academy deemed unworthy of admission. The interface panel pulsed with ancient energy as Dylan's fingers made contact. A tremor rocked the chamber, nearly throwing him off balance. Through the emergency lighting, he glimpsed Hera's scaled face tightening with concern. "Dylan." A familiar voice cut through the chaos. His father James burst through the research outpost's doors, his maintenance uniform covered in dust from the structural collapses already beginning throughout the colony. "I've overridden the security lockdown. We need to stabilize the connection before the hydraulic doors hissed open again." Security Chief Karok stormed in with 4 armed Krenim officers, their weapons raised. "This area is under emergency evacuation. Step away from the construct immediately." James moved between the security team and Dylan. "My son's research predicted this. The interface is already responding to his presence. Look at the energy patterns." The crystalline structure before Dylan hummed, tendrils of blue light extending toward his outstretched hands. The sensation reminded him of static electricity, but warmer, almost alive. Behind him, he heard Hera's rapid footsteps and the beeping of her research scanner. "Security Chief, I'm registering unprecedented synchronization patterns," Hera said, her voice steady as she held up her authorization credentials. "As lead researcher on this project, I'm invoking Emergency Protocol 793 to continue this operation." The ground shuddered again. Dr. Venn rushed in, his white lab coat flapping. "The power core readings are off the scale. We're detecting massive energy buildups in all 12 kilometers of the construct's segments." Dylan barely heard them. The interface's light had wrapped around his arms, creating a connection unlike anything the Krenim had achieved in their attempts. But instead of the smooth synchronization he'd expected, he felt resistance, like trying to log into a computer with an incorrect password. Through the partial connection, he sensed the ancient machine's confusion. It hadn't been programmed to interface with humans. "Something's wrong," Dylan called out, his voice strained. "It's treating me like an unauthorized user. The segments are activating sequentially. I can feel it through the network." Dr. Venn's scanner shrieked. "He's right. The construct is initiating a full awakening sequence. At this rate, it'll tear free from the colony's foundation within an hour." Through the neural link, Dylan perceived something else, a secondary pathway, like a maintenance backdoor in the system. "There's another control node, 3 segments back, an auxiliary interface. I can see it through the network, but I can't access it from here." Karak lowered his weapon, scales shifting color with agitation. "The maintenance tunnels. We've mapped them but never found anything resembling a secondary control system." "Because you weren't looking with human eyes," James said, pulling up schematics on his maintenance tablet. "Dylan, can you guide us to it?" Dylan nodded, though maintaining the connection already strained his mind. The vast consciousness of the worm pressed against his thoughts, ancient and alien. "I'll lead a team," Karak decided, gesturing to 2 of his officers. "Taz, Emmerich, you're with me. The engineer and the archaeologist too will need their expertise." The colony's alert system switched to a higher pitch. Director Vax's voice echoed through the speakers. "Attention all citizens. Emergency evacuation protocols are now in effect. Colony demolition charges will be activated in 1 hour if the construct cannot be contained." James squeezed Dylan's shoulder. "Hold on, son. Just keep it stable until we reach the auxiliary system." Dylan watched them disappear into the maintenance access tunnel, leaving him alone with the interface. Through the neural connection, he could track their progress into the worm's depths. But with each passing minute, the construct's resistance grew stronger, pushing back against the human consciousness that dared to breach its ancient defenses. A violent tremor shook the chamber. In the distance, metal screamed as another colonial support beam buckled under the strain. Dylan gritted his teeth, focusing all his concentration on maintaining the tenuous connection, while his father's team raced through the worm's internal passages, searching for their last hope of preventing catastrophe. Dylan's connection to the neural interface wavered as he tracked his father's team through the worm's internal network. The crystalline tendrils pulsed against his skin, each surge of energy sending pins and needles through his arms. Through the neural link, he witnessed the team's progress halt abruptly. A wall of corrupted crystal blocked their path, its surface reflecting the harsh emergency lighting in fractured patterns. Security Chief Karak raised his plasma cutter, the blue beam striking the growth. "Wait." James called out, but the energy had already connected. The crystal absorbed the plasma beam, redirecting it in a spray of sparks that forced the team back. James pulled up his maintenance scanner, its display flickering with familiar patterns. "I've seen this before. It's from the construct's repair systems." Dylan's consciousness brushed against the crystalline formation through the network. "Dad, there's a maintenance bypass. Lower service channel, section 47B." Speaking took effort. Something in the system had noticed his presence, probing at his connection like an antivirus program scanning for malware. Hera's scanner chirped. "He's right, but the route takes us past a primary power conduit, which is becoming increasingly unstable, Doctor." Venn added, checking readings on his tablet. "Dylan, your neural patterns are showing concerning fluctuations. The interface is demanding extraordinary processing power from your brain." Dylan barely heard him. The security subroutine had zeroed in on his presence, forcing him to shift his consciousness through subsystems to maintain the connection. Each move drained more of his strength. In the tunnels, a mechanical whirring drew the team's attention. Spider-like maintenance drones emerged from recessed wall panels, each one larger than a ground transport. Their ancient servos whined as they surrounded the team. Taz stepped forward, raising his Krenim interface device. "Perhaps we don't," Hera shouted, but Taz had already activated the device. The drone's optical sensors flashed red. They moved with surprising speed, herding the team away from their planned route with precise, coordinated movements. "They're not attacking," Hera observed, tracking the drone's patterns on her scanner. "They're guiding us somewhere." James compared the drone's trajectory to his maintenance blueprints. "The path they're indicating. It intersects with the auxiliary control system's location." Above them, the colony's warning system changed pitch. Director Vax's voice echoed through the tunnels. "Evacuation timeline accelerated. Demolition charges will detonate in 40 minutes. A tremor shook the passage. Through the neural link, Dylan sensed the rupture in the water reclamation facility, felt the cold rush of flooding in the lower levels. His consciousness scattered across subsystems as the security program pressed its attack, forcing him to constantly relocate to avoid being purged from the network. "We're splitting up," Karok announced, his scales shifting to a tactical orange pattern. Thompson, Hera, Emmerich follow the drone's path. Taz and I will continue through the blocked tunnels. We'll coordinate through comm channels and rendezvous at the auxiliary control point. Hera nodded to James. "The drones must have emergency protocols for guiding maintenance personnel. It's our best chance." "Agreed," James said, then activated his comm link. "Dylan, stay with us. We'll move faster now." Dylan tried to respond, but the security subroutine had found him again. He dove through a tertiary power management system, his mind burning with the effort of maintaining multiple awareness points in the network. Dr. Ven's medical scanner beeped in alarm. "His neural activity is reaching dangerous levels," Dr. Ven reported, adjusting equipment settings. "The interface connection is unprecedented, but it's pushing human neural capacity beyond safe limits." The maintenance drones led James's group deeper into the worm's infrastructure, while Karok and Taz began cutting through a side passage. Dylan tracked both teams through the construct systems, fighting against the security program's relentless pursuit while trying to guide them toward their destination. Another tremor rocked the passages. Through the neural link, Dylan felt the ancient machine systems accelerating toward full activation. Time was running out, and his grasp on the interface grew weaker with each passing moment. Through the neural connection, Dylan's awareness fragmented across multiple subsystems as warning indicators flared throughout the colony. His consciousness scattered, pieces of his mind tracking both teams while fighting the security subroutine's increasingly aggressive attacks. "Neural patterns exceeding safety thresholds," Dr. Ven announced, adjusting his monitoring equipment. "The interface is drawing more processing power than a human brain should be able to provide." The maintenance drones led James's group through a series of narrow passages. James paused, shining his light on the tunnel walls. "These maintenance routes, they're built for someone our size." Hera ran her scanner along the corridor's dimensions. "The scaling is perfect for human proportions." The Krenim archaeological teams assumed the builders were much larger based on the worm's external architecture. "Look," Emmerich called out, indicating a row of data terminals embedded in the wall of a circular hub chamber. Ancient displays flickered to life as they passed. James stepped toward the nearest terminal, but Hera grabbed his arm. "No time. 28 minutes until detonation." In the parallel tunnel system, Karok and Taz encountered another security barrier. A viscous foam sprayed from hidden nozzles, hardening instantly into a translucent wall. As Taz raised his cutter, the gravity shifted, pulling them sideways. "Careful," Karok warned, his scales rippling with tactical patterns. These defenses are meant to contain, not kill. They're herding us away from sensitive areas. The security chief's observation was interrupted by approaching footsteps. Director Vax strode into the interface chamber, his ceremonial robes incongruous among the emergency lighting and sweat-stained maintenance crews. "Report," Vax demanded, moving to Dr. Ven's monitoring station. Dylan barely registered the director's arrival. The security subroutine had cornered his consciousness in a tertiary power regulation system. As he fought to maintain control, fragments of data flooded his awareness: schematics, operational protocols, core directives. "It's not a weapon," Dylan gasped. "The worm, it's meant to heal planets, terraform them." The colony's structure groaned. Through the neural link, Dylan felt the power core's resonance building toward a critical threshold. The worm systems interpreted the colony's foundation as damaged terrain requiring rehabilitation. James's team reached a junction where the maintenance drones stopped, their optical sensors flickering between red and blue. The machines turned in circles, their programming apparently conflicted. Hera interfaced with the nearest drone's command port. Two paths. One leads to the auxiliary control center, but the other. She frowned at her readings. "Some kind of emergency shutdown system. It's not on any of our scans." Karok's voice crackled over the comm. "Thompson, we found something. Recent tool marks, diagnostic equipment. Someone's been accessing these systems secretly." "Unknown party activity confirmed," Taz added. "Technology doesn't match Krenim or original construct designs." Dylan's neural patterns spiked. Dr. Ven's monitors screamed warnings as the boy's brainwaves synchronized with the worm's base frequency. "Impossible," Director Vax breathed, studying the readings. "The construct is accepting his neural patterns at a fundamental level. No Krenim has achieved this degree of integration." Hera's scanner beeped urgently. She stared at the results, her scales paling. "The biological markers, they're a match. The worm's creators, they were like humans. That's why Dylan can interface with it. Why these tunnels fit us perfectly." A massive power surge ripped through the construct systems. Dylan cried out as the neural feedback threatened to overwhelm him. Warning klaxons blared throughout the colony. "Main support pylons at 12% integrity," the colony AI announced. 16 minutes until authorized detonation. James activated his comm. "We need to choose auxiliary control or emergency shutdown." "Dylan, can you see which?" Static cut through the channel as another surge hit. Dylan's connection to the worm's systems wavered. Through the fragmented link, he sensed the construct systems accelerating toward full activation. The choice between the two paths loomed before them, each offering a different chance at averting catastrophe, with the colony's demolition charges counting down to detonation. "Both," James said, making the call. "Emric, check the emergency shutdown. Hera and I will proceed to auxiliary control." He turned to Hera. "If we find nothing in 3 minutes, we regroup at your position, Emric." The team split up as another tremor shook the passage. Through his fragmenting connection, Dylan tracked their diverging paths while the security subroutine probed his defenses. Data cascaded through his mind system logs, activation protocols, environmental readings. His eyes widened as patterns emerged from the chaos. "The groundwater," he gasped. "There's something wrong with the chemical composition." The data streams coalesced into a clear picture: industrial pollutants, massive concentrations. Director Vax's face tightened. "That's classified colonial data. The worm is responding to environmental contamination," Dylan continued, his voice strained. "It's detecting toxins that shouldn't be there." "Doctor." Ven's scanner beeped rapidly. His neural patterns, they're synchronizing with the construct's base frequency. The interface is accepting his input at the root level. In the maintenance tunnels, Karok and Taz emerged into a hidden bay. Equipment lay scattered across workstations, modern tools mixed with improvised interfaces jury-rigged to ancient systems. Taz picked up a cracked data tablet. "This belongs to Dr. Sen," he said, examining the device. "The xenoarchaeologist who was expelled last season. Karok's scales shifted to alert patterns. His research clearance was revoked for unauthorized experimentation." James and Hera reached the auxiliary control chamber, plasma cutters raised. Dr. Sen stood at a central console, surrounded by cobbled together equipment. Cables snaked from ancient interfaces to modern devices, creating a web of unauthorized connections. "Don't interfere," Sen said without turning. "I'm trying to save us all." "By triggering a catastrophic system activation," Hera demanded. "By exposing the truth." Sen's fingers flew across the controls. "The worm recognizes human neural patterns because we're connected to its creators. I discovered this months ago, but Vax buried my research, just like he buried those chemical waste dumps under the aquifers." In the primary interface chamber, Dylan's consciousness brushed against core memory systems. Ancient data unfurled before him, technical specifications, crew logs, genetic markers. The builders, they were like us. No, they were us. Our ancestors. Director Vax moved toward the emergency controls, but Dr. Venn stepped in his path. "Colonial Security has been notified, Director. They're on their way." A mechanized whirring filled the tunnels. Maintenance drones emerged from wall panels, their articulated limbs moving with precision as they began sealing off sections of the passage. "The construct is preparing for deep-bore mode," Taz reported over the comm. "We'll be trapped if we don't move now." Emmerich reached the emergency shutdown module, his scanner revealing its true purpose. "This isn't a deactivation system, it's a hibernation protocol. We could suspend the activation sequence without destroying the construct." James kept his cutter trained on Sen. "You risked everyone's lives to prove a point, to prevent the Krenim from suppressing humanity's true potential," Sen replied. "We're not just random colonists, we're the heirs to this technology. The worm proves it." Dylan's consciousness scattered across subsystems as the activation sequence accelerated. Through the fragmented connection, he sensed the terraforming protocols analyzing pollution levels, preparing to purge the contamination. The worm wasn't malfunctioning, it was doing exactly what it was designed to do. The colony's structure groaned. Support beams buckled as the worm segments began shifting into their active configuration. Warning klaxons blared through every level of the settlement. 8 minutes until authorized detonation, the colony AI announced. "The hibernation protocol," Hera said, checking readings. "It would take simultaneous input from both here and the primary interface." Dylan's neural pattern spiked as ancient authentication protocols recognized his genetic signature. Through the connection, he could feel the worm systems waiting for proper initialization. They didn't need to stop it, they needed to control it. The maintenance drone's sealing pattern accelerated. Karok and Taz sprinted through closing gaps, racing to reach the auxiliary control chamber before their route was cut off. Time was running out for all of them to coordinate their actions, and the colony's demolition charges continued their inexorable countdown. "Now!" James shouted to Hera as they burst into action. 2 maintenance drones swept forward, their articulated limbs wrapping around Dr. Sen before he could reach his improvised control array. The scientist struggled against the mechanical restraints while his equipment continued interfacing with the worm systems, cables pulsing with data transfers. "Don't disconnect anything," Hera warned, her scanner sweeping the jury-rigged connections. "These power readings are critical. One surge could cascade through the entire network." In the primary interface chamber, Dylan's consciousness expanded through the ancient systems. Maintenance logs and operational data flooded his awareness, countless installations across different worlds, each programmed with identical activation parameters. The construct wasn't randomly reacting to the pollution, it was executing a pre-programmed response to environmental degradation in human settlements. "The worm," Dylan gasped. his neural patterns fluctuating across Dr. Ven's monitors. It's part of a network. They're all connected, waiting for us to reach a certain level of development. Director Vax moved toward the door, but colonial security officers burst in, weapons raised. Director Vax, the lead officer announced, you're under arrest for environmental crimes and conspiracy against the colony. Karok's voice crackled through the comm as he and Taz investigated the secondary maintenance bay. James, we found Sen's research logs. Vax didn't just hide the pollution data, he deliberately sabotaged the early warning systems. Your maintenance reports, Dylan's findings, he buried everything. In the emergency shutdown module, Emrich's scanner hummed as it analyzed the biological verification system. The genetic profiles, he reported, they confirm it. The builders were human, but he paused, studying the readouts. There are mutations in our current DNA. They could affect our ability to fully control the technology. The colony's structure screamed as support beams twisted. Through the neural interface, Dylan sensed the worm systems attempting to establish a stable configuration that would protect rather than destroy the settlement. 5 minutes until authorized detonation, the AI announced. Colonial security is attempting to override the charges, Dr. Venn reported, monitoring emergency channels. But the damage to the Foundation, his words cut off as proximity alerts blared. Multiple Krenim warships entering orbit, the colony AI announced. Lead vessel identified as KMS Retribution under Admiral Krell. The Admiral's reputation precedes him, Taz transmitted grimly. He's notorious for suppressing human technological advancement. Dr. Sen laughed despite his restraints. You don't understand what you've discovered here. The worm, the genetic profiles, it's all connected. Our ancestors left these installations across dozens of systems, programmed to activate when we were ready. Dylan's neural connection surged as new subsystems came online, responding to his genetic signature. Ancient interfaces illuminated throughout the worm's structure, displays showing capabilities far beyond current Krenim technology. Environmental restoration protocols detected, Dylan reported, his voice strained as the neural load increased. They could reverse centuries of damage, not just here but across multiple worlds. Warning indicators flashed across Dr. Ven's monitors as Dylan's neural patterns approached critical thresholds. But full activation requires deeper integration. The risks, son, James interrupted, his voice steady through the comm. Access auxiliary control. Link with my station. Dylan reached through the neural connection. The worm systems recognized the genetic markers of father and son, authentication protocols accepting their combined input. Ancient displays shifted, showing new command interfaces designed for multiple human operators. Above the colony, Admiral Krell's fleet moved into attack formation. The worm's external sensors tracked weapons powering up as Krenim High Command's containment protocols initialized. Through the neural interface, Dylan felt the ancient systems responding to their coordinated commands. The worm's segments shifted, power conduits pulsing with untapped potential as centuries of dormant technology awakened under human control. Warning klaxons continued blaring throughout the colony. 4 minutes until authorized detonation, the AI announced as Admiral Krell's fleet descended through the atmosphere, weapons charged and ready to enforce Krenim technological dominance, even as James and Dylan's combined neural inputs began unlocking the worm's true capabilities. Through the neural link, Dylan tracked multiple objects breaching New Eden's atmosphere. Krenim dropships incoming, he reported, the data streaming through his consciousness. 12 vessels, military configuration. James accessed the auxiliary control displays. Ground forces. Elite shock troops, Karok confirmed through the comm. His datapad pinged with a priority transmission from Admiral Krell. The message contained direct orders: assist in containment protocols, secure the construct, terminate civilian interference. His scales shifted to rejection patterns as he deleted the transmission. They're specialists in ancient tech suppression. Lieutenant Commander Axis leads the ground team. The boy's neural patterns are destabilizing, Dr. Venn announced, adjusting his equipment. The connection's too intense. He studied the waveform displays, noting correlations between Dylan's brainwaves and the worm's base frequency. Wait, there's a resonance pattern, if I can match the frequencies. Dr. Sen strained against the maintenance drone's grip. The shield systems, he called to James. You need to activate the defensive protocols. The builders included safeguards for civilian protection during terraforming. Hera's scanner swept the auxiliary controls. These interface points they match the primary chamber's configuration. Simultaneous activation required, James confirmed, studying the ancient displays. Dylan, can you see the shield protocols? Yes, but Dylan's voice caught as new data flooded his awareness. The worm's targeting systems are tracking the Krenim forces. It's categorizing them as hostile. Maintenance drones emerged from wall panels throughout the colony, their articulated limbs reconfiguring into defensive formations. Through security feeds, Karok watched the first Krenim dropship touch down near the worm's exposed segments. Taz, help me override the security checkpoints, Karok transmitted. We need to slow their advance. Colonial sensors detected new ships entering orbit. The UES Hyperion led a formation of human vessels, positioning themselves between Admiral Krell's fleet and New Eden's surface. Commander Sarah Russell's voice cut through military channels. Admiral Krell, your forces are violating colonial autonomy treaties. Stand down immediately. Dr. Venn cannibalized colonial medical equipment, assembling components into a crude resonance amplifier. This should stabilize the neural connection, he explained, calibrating frequencies. But we need time to implement it properly. 3 minutes until authorized detonation, the colony AI announced. Emmerich's voice crackled through the comm. The shutdown sequence would take hours, but there's an emergency protocol we can shield citizens inside the worm structure during critical operations. Through security feeds, they watched Krenim shock troops advancing through the colony's outer sectors. Lieutenant Commander Axis directed his forces with precision, deploying containment equipment designed to sever neural connections regardless of biological damage. The worm's segments shifted, ancient machinery groaning as it reconfigured. Colonial sensors couldn't interpret the pattern, but Dylan recognized it through the neural link. It's creating safe zones, he transmitted. Hardened sections for civilian protection. James accessed the auxiliary shield controls. Hera, take position at the secondary station. We'll need exact timing. He turned to the maintenance drones. Release Dr. Sen. We need his expertise. The scientist rushed to a control panel. The builders implemented redundancies, multiple simultaneous inputs required for critical systems. His fingers flew across the ancient interface. Match these sequences precisely. Above New Eden, Commander Russell's fleet maintained their defensive screen as Admiral Krell's ships charged weapons. The colonial defense vessels' inferior armament wouldn't survive a direct confrontation, but their position prevented orbital strikes without violating multiple treaties. Karok and Taz worked through colony security systems, triggering false alarms and lockdown protocols to redirect Krenim shock troops through longer routes. Lieutenant Commander Axis's forces encountered sealed bulkheads and activated defense turrets, slowing their advance toward the worm's critical systems. Dr. Venn activated his resonance amplifier. Dylan's neural pattern stabilized as the device synchronized human brainwaves with the construct's operating frequency. Through the strengthened connection, he accessed deeper layers of the worm's protocols. 2 minutes until authorized detonation, the AI announced as support beams continued buckling throughout the colony. The maintenance drones moved with precise coordination, extending mechanical limbs to access multiple control stations simultaneously. James watched shield activation sequences scroll across ancient displays, while Hera monitored power distribution through colonial sensors. Dr. Sen called out timing marks as they prepared to synchronize their inputs. Dylan's consciousness expanded through the worm systems as the construct entered its defensive configuration. Ancient machinery hummed with building energy, preparing to protect New Eden citizens while simultaneously launching its terraforming protocols. Success would require perfect timing between all stations, and preventing both Krenim military intervention and colonial detonation within the next 2 minutes. The colony trembled as the worm segments shifted into their final positions. Through the neural link, Dylan sensed the ancient systems reaching full power for the first time in centuries. Warning klaxons blared as Lieutenant Commander Axis's forces breached another security checkpoint, racing against time to implement their containment protocols before the construct achieved full activation. Through the neural interface, Dylan registered multiple contacts breaching the outer security perimeter. Lieutenant Commander Axis's shock troops advanced in practiced formations, their specialized containment gear gleaming under New Eden's emergency lighting. The first squad reached an intersection and walked directly into the maintenance drone's trap. White foam erupted from concealed nozzles, instantly hardening around 3 Krenim soldiers. Their companions raised weapons, but electromagnetic pulses flashed through the corridor. The troops' advanced weaponry powered down with sharp whines. Containment foam deployment successful in Sector 7, Taz reported through the comm. Activating emergency bulkhead sequence Delta. Metal barriers slammed down across multiple corridors, transforming New Eden's passages into a calculated maze. Karok's security codes locked each section, forcing the Krenim forces to advance through predetermined choke points where drones waited in defensive formations. Above the colony, new contacts emerged from hyperspace. 3 Krenim vessels approaching, Commander Russell transmitted. Configuration matches their Archaeological Council's research fleet. A new voice cut across command channels. This is Professor Jax of the Krenim Archaeological Council. Admiral Krell, by authority of Statute 793, you are ordered to stand down. These ruins fall under protected status. Dylan barely registered the orbital confrontation. The worm system surged through his consciousness, recognizing his genetic markers with an intensity that threatened to overwhelm even Dr. Ven's resonance amplifier. Ancient machinery groaned as the construct's segments began shifting, forming an armored shell around New Eden's weakened foundation. Shield activation protocols ready, Hera announced from the auxiliary control station. Her fingers flew across illuminated panels as James coordinated power distribution. Initiating on your mark. Energy cascaded from the worm's power core, creating a translucent barrier around the colony's central districts. Warning indicators flashed across James's displays as the shield drew massive power. Shields accelerating the activation sequence, James transmitted. 7 minutes until critical threshold. Through the enhanced neural connection, command protocols crystallized in Dylan's mind. I can see the shutdown codes for the colonial charges, he reported, but our communications are compromised, Karok confirmed. Krenim forces have penetrated our security networks. Standard channels aren't secure. In the emergency shutdown module, Emrich's instruments detected a power spike. New energy signature from the construct's core, he transmitted. Some kind of launch preparation sequence. The worm systems confirmed Emrich's reading through Dylan's neural link. If the threat level exceeded specified parameters, the construct would jettison its central processor to preserve its vital data. Colonial sensors pinged with new alerts. Dr. Sen rushed to a monitoring station, his restraints forgotten as ancient readings scrolled across the display. These radiation patterns, there's an entire complex down there. dozens of constructs, all dormant. The discovery rippled through command channels. On the Krenim flagship, Admiral Krell received Professor Jax's priority transmission containing Dr. Sen's preliminary data. The Admiral's mandibles clicked as he processed the implications. Lieutenant Commander Axis, he transmitted to his ground forces. Hold position. Do not engage the construct's defensive systems. But Axis's troops had already breached another security checkpoint. Maintenance drones converged on their position as Karok and Taz coordinated another series of bulkhead activations. Through security feeds, James watched the Krenim soldiers encounter more containment foam and electromagnetic pulses. 5 minutes until critical threshold, the colony AI announced. Dylan's neural patterns fluctuated across Dr. Ven's monitors as he fought to maintain control of the worm's escalating systems. The construct segments continued their transformation, ancient machinery executing protection protocols even as power levels approached critical limits. The shutdown codes, Dylan transmitted through gritted teeth. We need a secure channel. Professor Jax's voice crackled through the command frequency. Use the archaeological authentication bands. The frequencies are hardened against modern interference. James accessed the auxiliary communications panel, routing shutdown codes through precursor channels now. Dylan, prepare for transmission. The worm's core hummed as ancient systems reached their activation threshold. Below New Eden's foundations, dormant constructs waited in their underground chambers. Above, Professor Jax's vessels moved to interpose themselves between Admiral Krell's weapons and the colony. Through it all, Dylan held the neural connection, preparing to transmit the codes that could prevent catastrophe if they could coordinate all elements in time. Time crystallized into razor-sharp focus as Dylan transmitted the shutdown codes through the precursor channels. The worm segments vibrated, previously hidden panels sliding apart to reveal intricate mechanical arrays. These structures extended downward, piercing through New Eden's unstable foundation layers with surgical precision. Engineering Chief Russell, Karok's voice carried surprise as a figure emerged from the maintenance tunnel junction. This sector should be evacuated. Marcus Russell stepped into view, tablet computer projecting structural diagrams into the air. The worm support structures their following installation patterns from the Centauri archives. His fingers traced lines through the holographic display. See these load distribution nodes. They match configurations from the oldest human settlements. Through security feeds, they watched the worm's mechanical arrays weave a lattice of support beams beneath critical colonial infrastructure. Power conduits, water processing centers, and atmospheric regulation systems received priority reinforcement. In the auxiliary control chamber, Dr. Sen's equipment pulsed with strange energy. The neural recognition protocols are spreading through the network, he announced, studying readings. My modifications enhanced the genetic detection systems. James accessed a diagnostic panel. These activations signatures they're propagating into the underground complex. Hera's scanner tracked multiple power signatures activating below the colony. Confirmed. Dozens of smaller constructs powering up. Lieutenant Commander Axis's voice cut through Krenim tactical channels. Containment units, advanced to Junction 7. His transmission dissolved into static as electromagnetic interference saturated their frequencies. The maintenance drones moved with fluid precision, their formations adapting to counter Krenim tactical patterns. Through Dylan's neural link, he recognized combat protocols specifically designed to neutralize advanced energy weapons. The drones' coordinated movements herded Krenim troops into prepared defensive zones. Dr. Ven monitored the resonance amplifier's readings with growing interest. Dylan's neural patterns are achieving unprecedented stability. Dormant genetic sequences activating enhanced data processing capabilities emerging. Dylan's awareness expanded as his enhanced consciousness integrated with the worm systems. Colonial charge deactivation sequences drived into clear patterns, but transmitting them required access to New Eden's primary communications hub. The hub's in Sector 12, Taz reported, checking security feeds. Krenim forces have established a forward command post there. Brilliant energy patterns rose through New Eden's foundation as ancient machinery processed industrial contaminants. The decontamination protocols created sheets of blue-green light that danced across colonial structures. Professor Jax's transmission carried scarcely controlled excitement. Admiral Krell, these energy patterns match theoretical models of Class 9 terraforming technology. The scientific value alone, understood, Professor, Admiral Krell interrupted. Lieutenant Commander Axis, maintain current positions. Do not engage, construct defenses. The worm's transformation accelerated. Colonial power conduits merged with ancient systems as modern human engineering integrated with precursor technology. Support struts extended through weakened sections, while environmental processors synchronized with New Eden's life support network. Similar energy signatures detected at Proxima Colony, Commander Russell reported from orbit. Additional activations occurring in the Tau Ceti system. The colony AI's voice cut through local channels, 4 minutes until critical threshold. Dylan accessed deeper layers of the worm's protocols through his enhanced neural connection. The construct systems revealed an intricate synchronization sequence, one that could stabilize both the ancient machinery and colonial infrastructure if executed precisely. Auxiliary control, prepare for full integration, he transmitted. We'll need exact timing between all stations. Marcus input colonial structural data into a nearby terminal. Sending Foundation stress analysis now. The worm's support grid needs these coordinates. Dr. Sen studied the integration patterns. The symbiotic interface is already forming. Colonial systems are accepting precursor protocols. The underground complex rumbled as more constructs activated. Through security feeds, they watched smaller mechanical entities emerge from hidden chambers, their systems synchronizing with the primary worm's network. 3 minutes, the AI announced. Detonation sequence locked. James coordinated power distribution between colonial and precursor systems while Hera monitored the growing integration network. Dr. Ven adjusted the resonance amplifier's frequencies as Dylan's neural patterns continued evolving. The worm's core systems began their final countdown sequence. They had precious minutes to prevent either the colonial charge's detonation or the emergency launch of the construct's processor core. Success required precise coordination between Dylan's enhanced neural interface, the auxiliary control team's efforts, and the awakening precursor network stretching beneath New Eden's foundations. Through it all, the energy signatures continued rising from below, creating curtains of light that illuminated both the colony's desperate situation and the ancient technology that might save it. The maintenance drones held their defensive positions as Krenim forces regrouped, while in orbit, 2 fleets waited to see whether the crisis would end in disaster or discovery. Brilliant energy cascaded through New Eden's foundation as Dylan detected a critical warning through the neural interface. A massive structural beam beneath the primary life support hub groaned under immense pressure. We have a problem, Dylan transmitted. Main support beam showing severe stress fractures, redirecting maintenance units. Through security feeds, James watched squadrons of drones break away from their defensive formations. The mechanical units swarmed toward the compromised beam, leaving gaps in the containment perimeter. Lieutenant Commander Axis's forces immediately pressed their advantage. Multiple breaches in Sectors 7 and 9, Taz reported from his position near the communications hub. He crouched behind a maintenance panel with Karok and Marcus Russell, watching Krenim shock troops through gaps in the corridor's emergency lighting. The soldiers stood transfixed by waves of blue-green energy washing across their position as ancient machinery processed generations of industrial waste. 2 minutes until critical threshold, the AI announced. Dr. Sen's modified sensors pinged with new data. These smaller constructs, he transmitted, studying the readings. They're synchronized, each one specializing in a different environmental function. His fingers traced patterns across the display: water, soil, atmosphere, structural reinforcement. The underground network isn't random, Hera confirmed from auxiliary control. It's a complete terraforming system. Through his neural link, Dylan felt the specialized modules integrating with the worm's network. Each connection increased the strain on his consciousness. Dr. Ven's monitors flashed with warning indicators. Dylan's genetic markers are showing unprecedented changes, Dr. Ven announced. The interface is triggering adaptive mutations. We need to disconnect him now or the alterations become permanent. Not yet, Dylan transmitted through gritted teeth. Almost have the integration sequence. In the communications hub corridor, Karok signaled to his team. The Krenim guards remained distracted by the light show, their weapons lowered. Moving to position, he subvocalized. Taz, get ready to splice into the primary communications array. Commander Sarah Russell's voice cut across command channels, initiating emergency power transfer, rerouting defense grid energy to colonial infrastructure. James watched power readings spike as energy from the orbital defense platforms flooded into New Eden systems, getting the additional power. Hera, help me balance these loads. The mechanical entities continued emerging from underground chambers, each one approximately shuttle-sized. Their segmented forms glowed with the same blue-green energy as they synchronized with Dylan's neural interface. The combined power draw threatened to overwhelm New Eden's remaining functional systems. 1 minute, the AI announced. Detonation sequence locked. Marcus Russell studied structural data scrolling across his tablet. These support patterns, they're not random. The worm is reconstructing something specific. His eyes widened. These are prospace-age human engineering designs. Admiral Krell received urgent transmissions from his fleet. Similar energy signatures detected at multiple human colonies. High Command orders immediate tactical reassessment. Through the neural interface, Dylan coordinated the emerging mechanical entities. Each one moved with precise purpose, extending specialized processing arrays that interlocked with the worm's transformed segments. The combined network created a stabilization grid that spread through New Eden's foundation. 30 seconds, the AI announced. Karok's team reached the communications hub's primary access panel. Taz's fingers flew across the interface, bypassing layers of security protocols. Almost through, stand by for transmission. Dylan's consciousness strained against the overwhelming flow of data as dozens of mechanical entities synchronized through his neural connection. Dr. Ven's monitors showed his genetic structure continuing to alter with each passing second. Through it all, the ancient machinery continued its work, weaving a new foundation for the colony while processing generations of contamination into curtains of light that illuminated humanity's forgotten technological legacy. The next moments would determine whether that legacy would unite or divide worlds. AI countdown, 15 seconds. 10 seconds, the AI counted down. Taz's fingers danced across the communications hub interface. Final firewall breached, transmitting shutdown codes now. Karok pressed his security override chip against the panel while Marcus Russell input his engineering authentication. The combined clearances created a priority channel through New Eden's networks. Dylan's deactivation sequence flooded through colonial systems, racing against the AI's countdown. 5, 4, 3. Status indicators across New Eden's monitoring stations shifted from red to amber, then green. The colonial charges powered down with an audible whine of dissipating energy. Detonation sequence aborted, the AI announced. Relief lasted seconds before alarms blared through auxiliary control. James watched power readings spike into critical ranges. Energy surge detected. The transmission overloaded primary distribution nodes. The surge rippled through New Eden's electrical grid. Underground, maintenance tunnel hatches burst open as dozens of mechanical entities emerged. Colonial systems automatically designated them as worker units in monitoring displays. Each unit possessed unique configurations, some equipped with molecular fabrication arrays, others bearing sophisticated filtration systems or structural reinforcement tools. Through his neural interface, Dylan felt the workers synchronize with the worm's network. Their specialized systems integrated seamlessly, expanding his awareness of New Eden's infrastructure. He directed them toward damaged support structures, watching through multiple sensor feeds as they deployed advanced repair protocols. At the colony's central junction, Lieutenant Commander Axis's troops pressed forward, energy weapons cutting through the air. The maintenance drones responded with unexpected sophistication. Environmental control vents released precise bursts of superheated vapor. The moisture instantly crystallized into translucent barriers that matched the neural interface material's molecular structure. Incredible, Dr. Sen breathed, studying sensor data. The defensive formations they're learning from human tactical patterns. In auxiliary control, James and Hera analyzed readings from the modified scanning equipment. This transformation sequence, Hera noted, highlighting data streams. The worm isn't just defending itself, it's becoming part of New Eden's foundation. Confirmed, James replied. These integration protocols are creating a permanent support structure. The colonial systems are accepting it as primary infrastructure. Dr. Ven's monitoring equipment flashed urgent warnings. Dylan's genetic structure is reaching critical adaptation threshold. These changes. He studied the readings with growing concern. They're approaching permanent encoding. Dylan felt the alterations spreading through his body. Each passing second brought enhanced clarity to his connection with the ancient systems. The workers responded to his thoughts with increasing precision, their specialized tools restructuring colonial support beams at the molecular level. In orbit, Professor Jax's science vessels detected synchronized energy patterns linking multiple colonial sites. Admiral, she transmitted, we're tracking subspace communications between awakening installations. The frequency bands are unlike anything in our database. Admiral Krell watched tactical displays as similar signatures appeared across human space. All units disengage, fall back to defensive positions. Commander Sarah Russell's decision to divert power from the defense grid paid dividends as the workers completed their initial foundation repairs. The machines extracted raw materials from contaminated sections, restructuring them into reinforced support structures that exceeded original colonial specifications. Deep beneath New Eden, massive purification systems hummed to life. Contaminated groundwater flowed through ancient processing chambers. The polluted liquid emerged as pure water, while extracted contaminants were reconstituted into useful industrial materials. Marcus Russell analyzed streams of engineering data from the worker unit's operations. These construction methods, he transmitted, they match theoretical models from Earth's most advanced sustainable development research. The precision of molecular reconstruction, the material efficiency. More workers continued emerging from the underground complex. Their specialized environmental systems activated in sequence, each one connecting to the growing network under Dylan's enhanced control. Through the neural interface, he felt his consciousness expanding. The genetic changes accelerated, approaching the point of no return. Dr. Venn monitored the transformation with growing urgency. Dylan, we need your decision. These alterations, they'll make you permanently bonded to the ancient systems. You'll never be able to fully disconnect. The integration protocols reached their final phase. Colonial infrastructure pulsed with advanced energy signatures as ancient and modern technology merged into something entirely new. The future of New Eden hung in the balance as Dylan faced his choice. While around him, the workers continued their tireless effort to transform the colony's foundation. Through security feeds, they watched crystalline barriers rise throughout New Eden's corridors, the ancient machines adapting human engineering principles to create a defensive network that protected both colonial systems and their own processors. The transformation had only begun. Through security feeds, crystalline barriers continued rising throughout New Eden's corridors when James noticed an odd tingling sensation in his hands. He glanced down at his fingers hovering over the control interface and saw faint traces of blue-green energy dancing across his skin. "Hera," he transmitted, voice tight, "run a bioscan on my current readings." Her eyes widened as data scrolled across her display. "James, your genetic markers, they're shifting. The pattern matches Dylan's initial changes. The interface compatibility must be hereditary," Dr. Venn announced, splitting his attention between father and son's readings. "James, your DNA carries the same ancestral markers." Dylan's enhanced awareness detected his father's emerging connection. Through the neural interface, he sensed James's consciousness brushing against the edge of the ancient network. The worker units responded, their operations becoming more precise as they drew on both family members' inherited knowledge. Marcus Russell tracked the machine's efficiency ratings with growing excitement. "These units aren't just repairing damage, they're completely rebuilding our foundation with enhanced materials." He highlighted a section of data. "They're converting industrial waste into molecular-grade construction compounds." Beneath their feet, massive processing chambers hummed. Centuries of accumulated pollutants flowed through ancient filtration systems, emerging as pristine raw materials. The workers immediately incorporated these recycled compounds into their repairs, strengthening colonial support structures beyond their original specifications. Lieutenant Commander Axis lowered his weapon, signaling his troops to stand down. "Look at their precision," he transmitted to his command staff, while watching a worker unit repair damage from their earlier breach. The machine extracted contaminants from a damaged wall section, restructured the molecules, and reinstalled them as reinforced panels that seamlessly merged with existing colonial architecture. "Professor Jax requests permission to deploy research teams," his communications officer reported. "Granted," Axis responded. "Full scientific cooperation protocols." In the communications hub, Taz's fingers flew across newly stabilized interfaces. "Getting activation signals from multiple colonies," he reported to Karok. "Same pattern, environmental systems reaching critical thresholds, then ancient tech coming online. Patch me through to Commander Russell's fleet," Karok ordered. "We need to coordinate security for incoming civilian ships. They'll be coming to investigate these energy signatures." Dr. Venn's monitoring equipment pinged with new data. "Dylan, I've identified a stabilization point. We can halt the genetic changes without losing your interface capabilities." He transmitted a complex sequence of neural commands. "James, Hera, I need precise power regulation from auxiliary control." James fought through the disorientation of his own emerging connection to focus on the stabilization procedure. The worker units responded to his commands with increasing sensitivity, helping maintain New Eden systems while they worked to stabilize Dylan's transformation. Deep beneath the colony, scanning teams reported new discoveries as the workers cleared additional chambers. "Archive storage detected," a technician transmitted. "Personal devices, environmental engineering systems technology centuries ahead of current capabilities." Admiral Krell's voice cut across command channels. All Krenim vessels, new orders from High Command. Establish defensive perimeter around activation sites. Priority: protect ancient human restoration systems from unauthorized access. The worm segments pulsed with steady blue-green light as they merged permanently with New Eden's foundation. Each section now housed specialized environmental processors, already beginning targeted restoration of the colony's damaged ecosystems. Initial scans complete on the newly uncovered chamber, Marcus Russell transmitted from his engineering station. It's a complete archive. Environmental engineering data for every known planetary classification. Dylan reached the critical moment in his stabilization sequence. Through the neural interface, he sensed the ancient systems preparing to transfer control protocols. The worker units paused their operations, awaiting the completion of the authorization process. A new alert flashed across colony monitors approaching civilian ships from neighboring settlements, their trajectories converging on New Eden's coordinates. Commander Sarah Russell began coordinating defense fleet positions to manage the incoming traffic while maintaining security around the active restoration sites. The massive sealed chamber beneath them hummed with accumulated knowledge spanning centuries of human technological achievement. As Dr. Venn initiated the final phase of genetic stabilization, Dylan felt the weight of that heritage flowing through the neural interface, offering solutions to problems humanity had struggled with for generations. Spanning centuries of human technological achievement when the chamber's security systems activated, crystalline panels along the walls pulsed with recognition, responding to Dylan's enhanced genetic signature. Data streams cascaded through newly energized circuits as the central archive awakened. Archive systems online, Marcus transmitted. Power readings stabilizing across all sectors. Worker units moved with practiced efficiency, extending connection nodes between the archive's crystalline matrices and New Eden's power grid. Each successful link brought new sections online, holographic displays materializing with densely packed engineering schematics. Karok, Dylan transmitted through the neural interface. We need security teams at junction points 7 through 12. The archive's automated defenses are activating. Security feeds showed Karok coordinating mixed teams of human and Krenim forces, teams deployed, establishing weight. He paused as warning indicators flashed across his display. Archive defenses are targeting Krenim biosignatures. Dylan extended his consciousness through the interface, searching ancient security protocols. The worker units responded instantly, projecting access authentication screens. Found it. Dad, I need your genetic verification to modify allied species protocols. In auxiliary control, James fought through another wave of disorientation as his DNA continued aligning with the interface systems. Ready, he transmitted, placing his hand on the nearest crystal surface. Blue-green energy rippled from his fingers. Dual authentication accepted, Dr. Sen announced, studying the readings. The system designed for family-linked operation. Fascinating. The archive's defenses recalibrated, accepting Krenim biosignatures as authorized personnel. Karok's security teams moved into position, establishing a protected perimeter around the chamber's access points. Through multiple sensor feeds, Dylan watched worker units implementing restoration protocols across New Eden. Industrial waste processing facilities transformed as ancient machinery integrated with colonial systems. Contaminated materials flowed through enhanced filtration arrays, emerging as pure compounds ready for reconstruction. Professor Jax requesting permission to deploy research teams, Taz reported from communications. They want to document the molecular reconstruction process. Commander Sarah Russell's voice cut across the channel. Granted, but maintain strict access protocols. We're tracking 17 civilian ships on approach vectors. Professor Jax's scientists moved through secured corridors, recording data as worker units demonstrated their capabilities. A unit extracted polluted soil samples, separated individual molecules, then reassembled them into clean building materials that exceeded colonial engineering specifications. Dr. Ven's monitoring equipment registered the final phase of Dylan's genetic stabilization. Integration complete, he announced. DNA structure stabilized with interface compatibility preserved. Dylan felt the permanent connection settle into place. The ancient systems responded to his thoughts with crystalline clarity, though he sensed the unbreakable bond that now tied him to New Eden's infrastructure. Admiral Krell reports Krenim fleet repositioning, Hera transmitted from her station. They're establishing defensive grids around all known ancient sites. James studied tactical displays showing human and Krenim ships moving into coordinated formations. First joint fleet operations, he noted. The High Command's accepting our capabilities. Deep in the archive chamber, Marcus Russell directed engineering teams documenting the worker unit's construction methods. Each waste product gets broken down to base molecules, he explained through the comm system, then reconstructed into whatever materials the colony needs. Complete sustainability. The archive's transmission systems activated, sending data pulses towards similar installations across human space. Dylan sensed other sites awakening, their dormant systems responding to the signal. Multiple colonies reporting activation signatures, Taz announced. New Eden's installation is coordinating a full network startup. Through their shared genetic interface capabilities, Dylan and James felt the growing web of connections linking ancient sites. Worker units across New Eden continued their relentless efficiency, transforming the colony's infrastructure while processing centuries of accumulated industrial waste. Commander Russell's voice carried notes of controlled urgency. Incoming transmission from Central Command. They're requesting immediate data transfer on restoration protocols. 3 more colonies have reported critical environmental system failures. The archive's crystalline matrices hummed with accumulated knowledge as Dylan accessed the requested data. Ancient engineering specifications flowed through his enhanced consciousness, offering solutions tested across millennia of human expansion. The archive's crystalline displays flickered as new data streams cascaded through the neural interface. Dylan sensed a surge of activity from the worm's primary systems, responding to activation signals from distant colonies. "Dad," he transmitted. The network's expanding. Other installations are coming online. The chamber's walls shifted, panels sliding apart to reveal massive caverns housing rows of dormant machinery. These new worker units dwarfed their predecessors, their frames equipped with atmospheric processing arrays and climate stabilization equipment. "Incredible," Marcus Russell breathed, directing his scanning equipment toward the newly revealed units. "These are designed for planetara-scale restoration." Dr. Ven's monitoring equipment chimed with fresh readings. "Dylan, your neural conductivity is increasing. The proteins in your cerebral tissue are adapting to handle the data load." Through the interface, Dylan felt James's consciousness strengthen alongside his own. The ancient systems responded to their combined genetic signatures, unlocking higher-level protocols that had remained dormant during individual access attempts. "Security alert," Karok transmitted. "Multiple unauthorized access attempts detected across the network." His display highlighted intrusion points scattered throughout human space. Corporate signatures, tech cultists they're trying to exploit the awakening systems. The floor trembled as massive boring machines activated in the lower chambers. Colonial sensors tracked their movement through previously hidden tunnels that stretched between neighboring settlements. Professor Jax's teams reporting from Level 3, Taz announced. The worker units are deploying atmospheric processors, air quality already improving in affected sectors. Dr. Emanuel Wright hurried into the command center. His emergency transport from Earth barely settled on the landing pad. The historical expert clutched a data tablet displaying ancient engineering schematics. The restoration network was planned, he explained, connecting his device to a nearby terminal. Our ancestors built these installations into every colonial world insurance against environmental collapse. Admiral Krell's holographic form materialized above the tactical display. Commander Russell, radical elements within our military are mobilizing toward human colonies with active installations. I'm deploying additional fleet assets to protect the network. Through the neural interface, Dylan detected a critical alert from a neighboring settlement. The worm's sensors had identified dangerous geological instability beneath their foundation. James, he transmitted. We need to coordinate worker units through the tunnel network. The neighboring colonies at risk. His father's consciousness merged with his own through the interface as they extended their control to the distant site. The massive restoration units moved with precision through the underground passages, their combined genetic authorization allowing seamless operation across multiple installations. Professor Jax's voice crackled through the comm system. These atmospheric processors exceed anything in our database. The Krenim Science Council will need to reassess human technological capabilities. Marcus Russell directed engineering teams to analyze the tunnel network's construction. The reinforcement technology could revolutionize colonial architecture. These passages maintain perfect structural integrity despite crossing major fault lines. Security feeds showed Karok deploying joint human-Krenim forces throughout the tunnel system. His team secured key junctions as worker units transported resources and machinery between awakening installations. Dr. Wright, Commander Sarah Russell called from her station. We're receiving historical data requests from Central Command. They need context for the restoration network's activation protocols. The historian accessed newly unlocked archive files. The genetic authentication system was deliberately designed to require multiple family members. They wanted to prevent any individual from controlling the technology unilaterally. Through their shared neural connection, Dylan and James coordinated the worker unit's response to the geological threat. Massive machines moved into position, deploying stabilization equipment as the ancient systems processed data from multiple colonial sites simultaneously. Dr. Venn monitored their neural patterns as they managed the expanding interface load. Your genetic adaptations are accelerating. The enhanced DNA appears to activate latent capabilities when exposed to the ancient systems. The central archive hummed with increasing power as more installations awakened across human space. Each new activation strengthened the growing web of connections between colonial worlds, revealing the full scope of their ancestors' technological foresight. Warning indicators flashed across Dylan's neural interface as sensor data from Haven's Gate flooded the system. The geological instability they detected had progressed beyond critical thresholds. Multiple subsidence events detected beneath Haven's Gate's primary habitation zone, Marcus transmitted. Ground-penetrating radar shows extensive cavern networks. Through the interface, Dylan directed a squad of heavy worker units through the transport tunnels. The massive machines moved with surprising grace, their stabilization arrays already deploying as they approached the compromised areas. Accessing Haven's Gate structural data, James transmitted, his consciousness merging with Dylan's through their shared connection. His display highlighted a web of unauthorized mining tunnels threading between the colony's foundation pylons. These excavations aren't in any official surveys. Dr. Venn's monitoring equipment registered sudden spikes in their neural activity. Your synaptic throughput is increasing exponentially. The interface is triggering new genetic expressions. A transport landed on New Eden's primary pad, disgorging Mining Commissioner Richard Burke and his staff. Commander Russell met them at the entrance to Central Control. Those tunnels were properly reinforced, Burke insisted, gesturing at the holographic displays. Our engineering teams falsified their reports, Karok interrupted, stepping forward with a data crystal. My teams found these deleted surveys in Haven's Gate's backup systems. Your department knew about the structural weaknesses 3 months ago. Burke's face reddened. Those records are classified under Colonial Mining Authority. They're evidence of criminal negligence, Commander Russell stated. Central Command has authorized full disclosure to the restoration team. Through the neural interface, Dylan felt James coordinating with worker units at the opposite end of Haven's Gate's underground complex. The machines deployed molecular reconstruction arrays, converting mining waste into structural reinforcement compounds. Professor Jax's team reporting successful integration with Haven's Gate's processing facilities, Taz announced. Worker units are upgrading their filtration systems to handle the increased load. Security alerts flashed across Karok's display. Multiple breaches detected in Tunnel Section 12 Alpha. Corporate signatures confirmed. Dylan watched through security feeds as joint human-Krenim teams intercepted the infiltrators. The intruders carried sophisticated scanning equipment, clearly designed to analyze the worker unit's operational protocols. Admiral Krell reports syndicate vessels approaching from 3 vectors, Hera transmitted. They're targeting orbital positions above active installation sites. Dr. Wright burst into the command center, ancient data scrolling across his tablet. The archive contains restoration protocols from Earth's prespace period. Similar crisis, different scale, but the principles match perfectly. Dylan felt the strain as he and James pushed their neural interface to its limits, coordinating worker units across multiple sites simultaneously. New pathways opened in his mind as his enhanced genetics responded to the increased data flow. Remarkable, Dr. Venn muttered, studying their latest neural scans. Your brains are reconfiguring neural networks in real time. Marcus directed scanning equipment toward a massive worker unit applying molecular reconstruction protocols to Haven's Gate's foundation. These reinforcement patterns they match Dr. Ross's theoretical models exactly. Alexandra Ross. Commander Russell asked sharply. The researcher who vanished after claiming to find ancient technology. The same, Marcus confirmed. She must have located other dormant installations. Through the security network, Dylan watched Karok's teams deploying advanced sensor arrays throughout the tunnel system. The Krenim security chief had implemented strict biological authentication protocols at every junction. Professor Jax's voice carried notes of excitement. The worker units aren't just repairing Haven's Gate systems, they're completely rebuilding them. The efficiency improvements exceed our most optimistic projections. Admiral Krell's hologram materialized above the tactical display. Krenim battle groups engaging syndicate vessels near Colony 7. Commander Russell, requesting support from your patrol squadrons. Dylan focused on the immediate crisis, directing worker units to critical structural points beneath Haven's Gate. The machines worked with precise coordination, their waste conversion protocols transforming mining debris into advanced building materials. Commissioner Burke, Commander Russell addressed the mining official. Central Command requires immediate access to all geological survey data from human colonial worlds. No exceptions. Burke's shoulders slumped as he surrendered his security credentials. On the displays above them, worker units continued their relentless efficiency, reinforcing Haven's Gate's foundation while simultaneously upgrading its industrial infrastructure. Through it all, Dylan and James maintained their enhanced connection to the ancient systems, their shared consciousness expanding to meet each new challenge. Status alerts flashed across Dylan's neural interface as the worker unit's sensors detected an anomalous void beneath Haven's Gate's unstable mining caverns. The machine's ground-penetrating radar revealed a chamber hidden behind reinforced walls, its construction matching the ancient installation designs but with subtle modifications. "James," Dylan transmitted through their connection. "Are you seeing this?" His father's consciousness merged with his own as they directed a specialized worker unit to breach the chamber's outer seal. The massive machines cutting arrays sliced through layers of composite materials, revealing an entrance that bore clear signs of recent use. "These access protocols," James noted, examining the chamber's security systems. "They're altered versions of the original designs." Dr. Ven's monitoring equipment chirped urgently. "Your neural patterns are synchronizing at an accelerated rate. The shared interface is triggering additional genetic expressions." Security feeds showed Karok's teams surrounding Commissioner Burke as colonial forces accessed his secured files. The mining official's face paled as they extracted encrypted data crystals from his office safe. "Documents linking Burke to Dr. Ross's disappearance," Karok transmitted. "Corporate communications, surveillance logs they forced her into hiding when she discovered their illegal operations." The worker unit completed its breach of the hidden chamber, revealing banks of modified restoration equipment. Professor Jax rushed to examine the systems, his research team scanning rows of enhanced molecular reconstructors. "These modifications are brilliant," he declared, studying the altered protocols. "Dr. Ross found ways to accelerate the restoration process by orders of magnitude." Dylan felt the strain as he and James attempted to integrate the modified systems. Their shared consciousness expanded to accommodate the new protocols, neural pathways restructuring in response to the increased complexity. "Multiple syndicate vessels detected," Admiral Krell's hologram announced. "They're equipped with countermeasures designed to penetrate ancient defense grids." Through security cameras, Dylan watched Karok's forces engage syndicate infiltrators in Tunnel Section 14 Beta. The intruders carried scanning equipment that matched the modified technology in Dr. Ross's chamber. "They're using her research," Marcus realized, analyzing the captured devices. "These scanners incorporate her adaptations of the waste conversion protocols." Dylan directed worker units to implement Dr. Ross's modified restoration procedures. The machines executed her enhanced algorithms, stabilizing Haven's Gate's foundation with unprecedented speed. Warning indicators flashed as the alterations triggered cascading effects through the colony's power grid. "Communications disrupted in sectors 3 through 7, Taz reported. "The modified protocols are interfering with modern systems." James's consciousness guided Dylan through rapid adjustments to their control parameters. Their shared genetic enhancements responded to the challenge, developing new neural structures optimized for managing the altered technology. "Genetic stability at 60%, Dr. Venn announced, studying their latest medical scans. "Your DNA modifications are becoming permanently interlinked." Professor Jax's team decoded data archives from the hidden chamber. Dr. Ross discovered evidence of an impending environmental crisis. These modifications were her attempt to accelerate the restoration timeline. "Commander," Admiral Krell transmitted as his fleet engaged the Syndicate forces. "We've confirmed Dr. Ross is alive. Intelligence places her at a secured facility in the Antares system." Dylan felt James's drive through their neural link as they coordinated worker units across Haven's Gate's underground complex. The modified protocols stabilized the final support structures, but each interaction with the altered systems further transformed their shared genetic adaptations. "Similar installations activating across colonial space," Marcus reported, tracking automated alerts. Dr. Ross implemented these changes at multiple sites. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan and James sensed the growing web of modified technology spreading between colonial worlds. Each activation strengthened their control but increased their biological dependency on their shared interface. Fascinating, Dr. Venn murmured, examining their latest genetic scans. These adaptations appear inheritable. Your future children may carry enhanced compatibility with the restoration network. Karok's security teams secured the last access points to Dr. Ross's chamber as engineering crews began integrating her modifications into Haven's Gate systems. The enhanced restoration protocols continued their work, transforming mining waste into advanced construction materials with unprecedented efficiency. Admiral Krell's tactical display highlighted Syndicate defensive positions around their facility in the Antares system. We'll need a coordinated strike to extract Dr. Ross before they can exploit more of her research. Launch Rescue Operation Alpha 7, Admiral Krell transmitted as his fleet moved into attack formation around the Syndicate facility. The massive structure hung against the swirling backdrop of the Antares system's gas giant, its research modules extending like metallic fingers into space. Commander Russell's strike teams deployed from stealth shuttles, human marines and Krenim shock troops breaching the facility's outer hull through precisely calculated entry points. Dylan watched through their helmet feeds, coordinating worker unit movements through the underlying transport tunnel network from his neural interface station on New Eden. Teams Beta and Gamma entering research sector, a Marine sergeant reported. Multiple hostiles encountered. Engaging. James's consciousness merged with Dylan's as they directed worker units to reinforce colonial stability across 3 systems simultaneously. Their shared neural pathways evolved to handle the increasing data flow, new structures forming to process the complex streams of information. Genetic adaptation proceeding at unprecedented rates, Dr. Venn noted, studying their latest scans. Your bodies are optimizing interface protocols rather than fighting them. Through security feeds, they observed Dr. Venn accompanying the rescue teams, medical equipment ready to treat interface-related trauma. The assault force fought their way through automated defense systems, pushing deeper into the facility's research wing. Located primary laboratory, Karok transmitted. Heavy security presence, moving to breach. The feed showed Syndicate guards protecting a reinforced chamber. Inside, Dr. Ross lay unconscious, connected to crude interface equipment that sparked and fluctuated erratically. Her neural readings showed severe degradation patterns. Multiple research databases detected, Marcus reported, accessing the facility's systems. Downloading Dr. Ross's complete archives. Dylan directed worker units through newly revealed transport tunnels beneath Haven's Gate, implementing stability protocols derived from the recovered research data. The machines executed modified restoration procedures, their enhanced efficiency preventing the mining caverns from collapse. Reactor containment failing, a Krenim engineer announced. Automated defenses triggering overload sequence. James coordinated with Dylan to redirect worker units through the transport network, their shared consciousness expanding to manage the complex operation. The machines deployed emergency repair protocols, bypassing damaged systems to stabilize the reactor core. Dr. Ross secured, Commander Russell transmitted. Medical team beginning emergency treatment. Data archives recovered intact. Professor Jax accessed the facility's research systems, examining Dr. Ross's original findings. These environmental models are incredible. The ancient network was designed to predict and prevent colonial development crises. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan and James sensed worker units activating across multiple worlds, responding to approaching environmental tipping points. Their genetic structures adapted to handle the increased load, developing new neural pathways optimized for the expanding interface. Additional Syndicate research sites identified, Karok reported, analyzing recovered coordinate data. Evidence of widespread interface technology development programs. Admiral Krell's hologram appeared in the command center, establishing permanent joint task force. Krenim and human assets will protect the restoration network from unauthorized access. Medical teams transferred Dr. Ross to a stasis pod for transport to New Eden. Dylan watched through security feeds as worker units completed reactor stabilization protocols, preventing a catastrophic overload that would have destroyed vital research data. Beginning implementation of safety modifications. Professor Jax announced as engineering teams integrated Dr. Ross's protocols across the restoration network. Dylan felt the strain as he and James coordinated the widespread changes, their enhanced genetics responding to each new demand on their shared interface. Security, Chief Karok's forces secured the facility's remaining data cores, while search teams mapped additional transport tunnel junctions. Through their neural connection, Dylan and James continued directing worker units across multiple colonial sites, their shared consciousness expanding to meet the growing complexity of the restoration network. The transport shuttle carrying Dr. Ross's stasis pod docked at New Eden's medical center, as Dylan and James maintained their shared connection to the worker units. Dr. Ven's medical team rushed her to the neural trauma ward, their equipment detecting severe interface-related damage. Her neural architecture shows signs of forced adaptation, Dr. Ven explained, examining the detailed brain scans. The Syndicate's crude interface technology attempted to replicate your enhanced structures without proper genetic foundations. Dylan observed the medical data through his neural feed, while directing worker units through Haven's, Gates' newly stabilized tunnels. The machines executed Dr. Ross's modified protocols with unprecedented efficiency, converting industrial waste into construction materials while drawing minimal power from the colony's grid. Power consumption down 60%, Taz reported from his engineering station. Waste processing rates increased by a factor of 8. Colonial Administrator Parker's hologram materialized in the command center. These efficiency gains are remarkable. I'm requesting immediate implementation across all human settlements experiencing environmental strain. Through their shared consciousness, Dylan and James coordinated the restoration network's expanding operations. The worker units began executing complex environmental corrections without explicit commands, their behavior patterns shifting in response to the enhanced genetic interface. Units in Sector 7 initiating autonomous restoration sequences, Marcus noted, monitoring the system displays. They're anticipating degradation patterns before our sensors detect them. Security alerts flashed across the command screens as colonial forces moved to arrest Marcus Webb. The Resource Management Director activated hidden systems in his office, disappearing into a concealed tunnel entrance moments before security teams breached the door. Webb accessed restricted transport passages, Karok transmitted, tracking him through subsection Delta 9. James directed worker units to scan the tunnel networks while Dylan processed the security feeds. Their shared neural pathways adapted to handle the increased data flow, triggering new developments in the machine's response patterns. Admiral, Marcus reported, analyzing surveillance data, we've confirmed Consolidated Mining Corporation's involvement. Their supply chains connect directly to all 3 Syndicate research sites. The Central Archive's monitoring systems highlighted growing power fluctuations throughout the transport network. Engineering displays showed resonance patterns spreading between colonial installations as Dr. Ross's modifications took effect. The structural reinforcement fields are experiencing harmonic interference, Professor Jax announced, studying the data streams. We need to adjust the implementation protocols. In the medical center, Dr. Ven injected carefully calibrated cellular modulators into Dr. Ross's neural tissue. Using your medical data as a template, he explained to Dylan through the interface. This should help stabilize her modified pathways. The first successful integration of Krenim technology with the worker unit systems triggered automated security alerts across the restoration network. Dylan and James processed the authorization requests through their neural interface as Professor Jax's team monitored the results. Enhanced environmental sensors online, a Krenim technician reported. Detection resolution increased by 300%. Colonial monitoring stations transmitted urgent alerts as environmental degradation patterns emerged across multiple worlds. The data matched Dr. Ross's original predictions with disturbing accuracy, revealing the true extent of industrial damage to colonial ecosystems. Implementing restoration protocols, Dylan transmitted through the worker unit network. The machines responded instantly, their evolved behavioral patterns accelerating the deployment of environmental corrections. Security Chief Karok's investigation teams uncovered encrypted communications linking Webb to multiple officials within the colonial administration. The evidence suggested a coordinated effort to conceal corporate exploitation of colonial resources. Medical update, Dr. Venn transmitted. Dr. Ross's neural patterns showing initial signs of stabilization. Recovery time estimated at 7 to 2 hours. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan and James sensed the restoration network's expanding influence as more colonial sites activated their dormant installations. The worker unit's evolved responses created new challenges in maintaining control while maximizing their efficiency. Professor Jax's research teams documented each successful integration of Krenim technology, building a comprehensive database of compatible modifications. The combined systems enhanced their environmental monitoring capabilities, but required constant neural supervision through Dylan and James's interface. Security feeds tracked Webb's movement through the transport tunnels as colonial forces established containment perimeters. The resource management director's escape route suggested detailed knowledge of restricted access points, indicating support from others within the administration. The worker units continued implementing Dr. Ross's modified protocols across Haven's Gate, while Dylan and James adapted to their growing neural control over the restoration network. Their shared consciousness expanded to meet each new challenge as the ancient systems evolved beyond their original operational parameters. A priority alert flashed through Dylan's neural interface as unauthorized access attempts registered at restoration sites across 3 systems. The ancient network's response surpassed their expectations. New units detected in tunnel network, Marcus announced, monitoring the system displays. Previously sealed chambers activating. Through their shared consciousness, Dylan and James observed smaller, heavily armored machines emerging from hidden alcoves. The Guardian units moved with practiced precision, their design clearly optimized for defensive operations. Remarkable, Professor Jax transmitted, analyzing the incoming data. The ancients built in contingencies for network security. Security Chief Karok's voice cut through the command channel. Webb located. Consolidated Mining Corporation facility on New Carthage. Research Division attempting worker unit reverse engineering. In the medical center, Dr. Venn adjusted the neural interface equipment connected to Dr. Ross. Dylan, we need a calibrated signal feed. Your enhanced patterns could stabilize her neural architecture. Dylan established a modified connection to the medical systems. Dr. Ross's neural readings fluctuated, then began showing consistent improvement patterns. Her eyes opened briefly as the treatment took effect. Corporate weapons program, she whispered, her voice weak but urgent. Using interface tech, without genetic basis. Emergency alerts flooded the command displays as New Carthage's environmental monitoring systems detected industrial contamination spreading through groundwater aquifers. Colonial Administrator Parker's hologram appeared, face tight with controlled anger. Implement full restoration protocols, Parker ordered. All corporate authority suspended under emergency provisions. Through the transport network, Dillon and James directed worker units toward New Carthage's industrial sectors. The Guardian units moved ahead, securing critical junctions against potential interference. Syndicate convoy intercepted, Admiral Krell reported. Prototype interface equipment recovered. Matches equipment used on Dr. Ross. Professor Jax's analysis team examined the captured technology. Crude neural adapters, designed to force compatibility without genetic modification, explains the severe tissue damage in test subjects. Corporate security forces attempted to seize control of a restoration site in New Carthage's northern industrial zone. The Guardian units responded with precise coordination, deploying localized stasis fields and neural disruptors. The corporate troops found themselves contained without injury as colonial security moved in. Multiple facilities surrendering, Karok transmitted. Guardian unit deployment proving highly effective at minimal casualty rates. Commander Russell's engineering assessment revealed systematic structural compromises throughout New Carthage's industrial infrastructure. Cost-cutting measures created critical weaknesses, entire sectors at risk of catastrophic failure. Worker units initiated emergency repairs as Dillon and James coordinated their efforts through the neural interface. Their shared consciousness expanded to accommodate the increasing complexity, genetic structures adapting to handle the enhanced data flow. Massive data center detected, Marcus reported, analyzing deep-scan results from beneath New Carthage's primary industrial complex. Heavy encryption, corporate black site. The facility's security systems proved no match for the Guardian unit's advanced capabilities. Inside, colonial investigators discovered archived communications detailing consolidated minings, systematic suppression of environmental research data across multiple worlds. Similar facilities detected near restoration sites throughout human space. James transmitted through their shared interface. Pattern suggests coordinated exploitation effort. Colonial Administrator Parker's emergency declaration granted Karok's Joint Security Forces full authority to secure all restoration infrastructure. The Guardian units established defensive perimeters while worker units continued implementing Dr. Ross's modified protocols. Through their neural connection, Dillon and James sensed their influence over the ancient systems expanding. The transport tunnel network responded to their enhanced control with increasing efficiency, allowing them to coordinate operations across unprecedented distances. In the medical center, Dr. Ross's neural patterns stabilized further. Her eyes tracked Dr. Then, as he examined the latest scan results, the corporate research, she managed. It goes deeper than we thought. The Guardian units continued their precise defensive operations, demonstrating capabilities that suggested the ancient builders had anticipated attempts to subvert their restoration technology. As Dillon and James directed the expanding network through their enhanced interface, the true scope of the crisis began to emerge. Warning indicators flashed across command displays as security systems detected multiple breach attempts throughout the transport tunnel network beneath New Carthage. Multiple unauthorized interface signatures detected, Marcus announced, hands moving rapidly across his console. Corporate forces attempting to access restoration nodes in sectors 3, 7, and 12. Through their neural connection, Dillon and James observed the intruder's life signs fluctuating dangerously as stolen interface systems overloaded their unmodified neural pathways. Several corporate operators collapsed, their minds unable to handle the ancient technology's data flow. Medical emergency teams deploying to breach sites, Dr. Venn transmitted. Neural damage patterns match previous corporate test subjects. Colonial Administrator Parker's hologram appeared, features hardened with perseverance. Effective immediately, I am declaring martial law across all New Carthage industrial sectors. Security forces are authorized to use maximum containment protocols. The Guardian units moved with mechanical precision, establishing overlapping defensive grids around critical restoration nodes. Dylan and James directed their responses through enhanced neural pathways, processing data streams from 23 colonial sites simultaneously. Genetic stability confirmed, Dr. Venn reported, examining their latest medical scans. DNA modifications have achieved sustainable equilibrium, long-term neural interface operation now viable. In the medical center, Dr. Ross pushed herself to a sitting position. The corporate weapons program, she said, voice stronger. They found a way to reprogram worker units for aggressive resource extraction. The environmental damage would be catastrophic. Marcus's engineering displays lit up with new alerts. Explosive devices detected throughout the tunnel network. Structural analysis indicates. He paused, rechecking the data. They're configured to trigger artificial seismic events. Worker units initiating emergency containment, Dylan transmitted through the interface. The machines moved swiftly, securing explosive devices while Guardian units established protective fields around critical support structures. Space defense alerts screamed across command channels as Admiral Krell's voice cut through the communications network. Corporate battle group approaching New Carthage. Weapons signatures indicate modified restoration tech. The Guardian unit's defensive protocols activated automatically as corporate vessels opened fire. Energy shields deflected the attacks, their ancient design proving far more effective than the corporation's attempts to weaponize the technology. New security measures implementing across all restoration sites, James transmitted, their shared consciousness expanding to accommodate the increased data flow. Guardian units establishing automated defense grid. Security feeds showed corporate infiltrators attempting to breach the central archive through maintenance access points. The Guardian unit's defensive protocols activated instantly, deploying targeted stasis fields that immobilized the intruders without causing injury. Safety protocols violated in multiple corporate facilities, Marcus reported, analyzing structural data. Critical containment systems compromised. Environmental breach imminent in sectors 4 and 9. Worker units swarmed through the industrial zones, implementing emergency repairs based on Dr. Ross's modified protocols. Their enhanced efficiency prevented several catastrophic failures, revealing the full extent of corporate negligence. Deep beneath New Carthage's primary industrial complex, colonial security forces secured the corporate data center. Files streamed through Dylan and James's neural interface as the restoration network's archive systems automatically backed up evidence of systematic environmental crimes. Regional Director Morton attempting database purge, Kerouac transmitted. Archive systems preserving evidence stream. Corporate corruption network identified. The Guardian unit sensors detected unusual biological signatures emanating from a sealed research facility near the industrial core. Inside, colonial forces discovered corporate genetic research labs filled with failed interface experiments. These subjects, Dr. Venn transmitted after examining the victims, show attempts to replicate Dylan and James's neural compatibility. The damage patterns suggest widespread testing. Through their expanded neural connection, Dylan and James directed the restoration network's response to each new crisis. The Guardian units maintained their defensive operations, while worker units continued implementing critical environmental protocols. In the command center, new data streams revealed corporate research sites activating across multiple colonial worlds. Through the command center's neural interface, Dylan registered multiple anomalous signals cascading through colonial communication arrays. The previously dormant data patterns erupted into a coordinated assault on restoration site security protocols. Massive cyber attack detected, Marcus announced, his fingers dancing across emergency override controls. They're exploiting vulnerabilities in our communication infrastructure. Dylan and James's shared consciousness expanded through the neural network, their enhanced capabilities enabling real-time response to the digital onslaught. Guardian units activated additional security measures, their ancient programming adapting to counter the sophisticated intrusion attempts. Worker units dispatched for emergency system repairs, James transmitted, directing mechanical precision through their neural link. Critical infrastructure points receiving priority reinforcement. In New Carthage's primary research complex, Security Chief Karok led a tactical team through sterile white corridors. They breached the central laboratory to find Dr. Victor Kane frantically interfacing with data terminals. "Delete everything," Kane shouted to his assistants. "Protocol 7, now." Guardian units deployed localized stasis fields, freezing the research staff in place. Karok's team secured multiple data cores containing detailed records of forced genetic modification procedures. Security footage revealed test subjects strapped to interface chairs, their neural patterns destabilizing as incompatible connections tore through their minds. Through the transport network, Dylan observed automated defense systems activating previously hidden security protocols. Massive bulkheads sealed compromised tunnel sections while specialized repair units emerged from concealed maintenance bays. "Energy signature analysis complete," Admiral Krell transmitted. "Multiple unauthorized activation attempts detected in uninhabited systems near corporate mining operations. Sending coordinates." Dr. Ross examined environmental data streaming through medical center displays. "These manufacturing byproducts," she indicated specific chemical patterns, "they're creating toxic compounds that accelerate environmental breakdown. The corporations knew, they just didn't care about the long-term effects." Worker units began implementing modified waste processing protocols based on Dr. Ross's analysis. Their efficiency increased as Dylan and James refined their control parameters through the neural interface. "Intercepted transmission," Marcus announced. "Project Phoenix files decrypting." This goes beyond simple corporate espionage. They were developing weaponized worker units. Regional Director Morton's private shuttle lifted off from New Carthage's executive platform. Guardian units tracked its ascent, their defensive systems engaging with precise calculation. The shuttle's navigation systems failed, leaving it suspended in a containment field until colonial security could take Morton into custody. "Corporate infiltration network identified," Karok transmitted as his team secured additional research sites. Central Archive security protocols are providing detailed surveillance records of systematic espionage operations. Dr. Venn monitored Dylan and James's neural patterns with growing concern. "Your genetic structures are showing signs of stress from the expanded interface load. We need to establish sustainable operational limits." Commander Russell's engineering teams uncovered sabotage devices throughout New Carthage's industrial infrastructure. The machines sat dormant, waiting to trigger cascading systems failures across multiple colonies. "Worker units beginning systematic sweep of all facilities," Dylan transmitted, directing the ancient machines through carefully optimized search patterns. Cataloging all potential threats for immediate neutralization. Colonial Administrator Parker's holographic form appeared in the command center. "Based on recovered evidence, I am declaring a state of emergency across all affected colonies." Security Chief Karok, you have full authority to coordinate with Admiral Krell's forces in securing restoration sites and apprehending corporate conspirators. Additional worker units emerged from the transport network, their sensors detecting previously hidden environmental damage beneath corporate facilities. The evidence pointed to deliberate concealment of widespread ecological violations, extending far beyond currently identified sites. The Guardian units maintained their defensive grid as Dylan and James worked to integrate colonial systems into the restoration network security framework. Through their enhanced neural connection, they processed incoming data from multiple colonies simultaneously, coordinating responses to each new threat as it emerged. Corporate battle group changing course, Admiral Krell reported. Multiple vessels detected entering uninhabited systems with active restoration sites. Guardian unit defensive protocols engaging. Guardian unit defensive protocols detecting unauthorized tunnel breaches. Dylan transmitted as new alerts cascaded across the neural interface. The sensors revealed specialized drilling equipment penetrating restoration infrastructure on multiple worlds. James directed reinforcement protocols through their shared connection. Massive barrier systems emerged from concealed chambers, flowing like liquid metal to seal the breaches. The corporate drilling machines ground to a halt against the ancient material's impossible density. Consolidated Mining Corporation logos identified on recovered equipment, Marcus reported, examining debris from a failed incursion. These drills incorporate stolen worker unit designs. Through the command center's displays, they watched Security Chief Karok's teams breach a hidden facility beneath an abandoned mining complex. Stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a motionless figure connected to crude neural interfaces. 217 victims identified, Dr. Venn transmitted, her medical teams moving through the facility. Neural pattern analysis shows severe damage from forced interface attempts, initiating emergency treatment protocols. The Guardian units deployed specialized medical pods, their ancient technology adapting to stabilize the victims' compromised neural pathways. Dr. Ross coordinated the rescue operation from New Carthage's medical center, analyzing recovered research data. These files, she indicated specific genetic sequences, show they found fragments of the original enhancement protocols, their attempts to artificially accelerate compatibility. She paused, studying the test results. The damage patterns are identical across all subjects. Admiral Krell's voice cut through the command channel. Corporate transport intercepted in Sector 7. Dr. Marcus Webb and Thomas Reed in custody. Data cores recovered. Dylan processed the incoming evidence through their enhanced neural connection. Environmental crime records from 17 colonies streamed through the Restoration Network's archive systems, documenting systematic contamination and corporate cover-ups. Structural alerts screamed across the interface as synchronized detonations rocked New Carthage's industrial sector. Dylan and James's shared consciousness expanded, directing hundreds of worker units through emergency repairs. Their enhanced DNA responded to the increased load, neural pathways optimizing in real time. Multiple critical failures detected, Marcus transmitted, monitoring the damage. Corporate sabotage devices triggering chain reactions in compromised facilities. The worker units moved with impossible speed, implementing containment protocols as faster than human operators could process the incoming data. Through their neural link, Dylan and James coordinated simultaneous responses across dozens of sites. Engineering analysis complete, Marcus announced, examining recovered corporate designs. These modified worker units. He transmitted the technical specifications. They're designed for automated strip mining, self-replicating resource extraction machines. Deep beneath New Carthage's surface, colonial forces discovered vast storage chambers filled with processed industrial byproducts. The worker unit's sensors detected weapons-grade materials refined from environmental contamination. Specialized containment protocols engaging. James transmitted as the restoration network responded to the threat. Ancient systems deployed previously dormant security measures, neutralizing the toxic compounds while preserving evidence of corporate weapons development. Emergency transmissions flooded in from outlying colonies as similar facilities emerged from hidden corporate infrastructure. Administrator Parker's hologram appeared in the command center, features tight with focus. "Activating Joint Task Force protocols," he announced. "Colonial Security will coordinate with Admiral Krell's forces and Guardian units to secure all compromised restoration sites." The worker units continued implementing enhanced containment measures across affected worlds. Through their evolving neural connection, Dylan and James felt the ancient interface system adapting alongside their enhanced capabilities, unlocking new protocols to meet the expanding crisis. Karok's security teams breached another hidden facility, this one concealed beneath an uninhabited world's surface. The Guardian unit's sensors mapped an extensive network of unauthorized research sites connected by corporate transport tunnels. Additional stasis pods detected, Dr. Venn reported as medical teams deployed through the newly discovered complex, initiating emergency extraction procedures, restoration technology standing by for neural stabilization. Through the restoration network sensors, Dylan detected a surge of activation signals radiating outward from New Carthage. Dormant chambers beneath 17 colonial worlds opened simultaneously, releasing waves of worker units pre-programmed with emergency containment protocols. Multiple restoration sites responding, James transmitted, his consciousness seamlessly integrated with Dylan's as they directed the ancient machines. Worker unit deployment patterns adapting to local conditions. The command center's displays tracked thousands of units emerging across human space. Each machine moved with coordinated precision, neutralizing corporate sabotage devices before they could trigger cascading systems failures. Dr. Venn's medical monitors registered unprecedented stability in their neural patterns. "Your genetic structures are achieving new optimization states," she noted, studying the real-time data. "The interface system appears to be actively refining your DNA for improved multi-site control." Security Chief Karok's voice cut through the command channel. "Breaching Consolidated Mining's research complex on Nexus Prime. Multiple subjects located." The tactical feed showed his teams sweeping through pristine laboratory spaces. In a secured data center, they found Dr. Elena Santos systematically copying files to protected storage devices. 27 bloodlines, she transmitted, her voice tight with controlled anger. They identified families potentially compatible with the interface system. Then they took them parents, children, anyone who matched their genetic profiles. The data streamed through the Restoration Network's archive systems. Marcus examined the files, correlating them with missing persons reports across multiple colonies. "Systematic kidnapping operation," he confirmed. "They targeted specific family groups for forced experimentation." Administrator Parker's hologram materialized, implementing immediate protective measures for identified at-risk populations. Colonial security forces are deploying to secure potential targets. Deep beneath New Carthage's industrial sector, worker units mapped an extensive network of unauthorized tunnels. Their sensors detected hybrid machines incorporating stolen restoration technology, unstable prototypes that threatened both colonial systems and the ancient infrastructure. "Containment protocols engaging," Dylan transmitted as Guardian units deployed specialized countermeasures. The hybrid machines struggled against precision-targeted energy fields, their corrupted programming failing against the original designs. Admiral Krell's fleet transmitted long-range sensor data from 3 uninhabited systems. Massive automated mining operations carved through planetary crusts, using crude copies of worker unit technology to strip resources without environmental safeguards. Confirmation of Dr. Ross's projections, James noted as they processed the sensor feeds. These operations have rendered multiple potentially habitable worlds unsuitable for colonization. Through their expanded neural connection, Dylan and James coordinated emergency responses across all affected colonies. The ancient interface system scaled smoothly alongside their enhanced capabilities, unlocking additional control protocols as needed. Marcus's engineering teams traced complex sabotage networks through colonial infrastructure. These devices are designed to trigger simultaneous industrial accidents, he transmitted, examining the corporate hardware. The scale of infiltration suggests long-term strategic planning. Administrator Parker coordinated with a Krenim military delegation in the command center. Their agreement established joint protection zones around all restoration sites, marking unprecedented cooperation between the species. Security breach detected, Marcus announced as automated defenses engaged. Sophisticated cyberattack targeting primary control nodes. Origin point traced to Europa 7. The Guardian unit's defensive protocols activated instantly, countering the intrusion attempt. Through the neural interface, Dylan and James observed corporate systems attempting to bypass the genetic authentication requirements. The attack failed, leaving behind clear evidence linking multiple security breaches to coordinated corporate operations. Worker units continued deploying enhanced containment measures across 17 critical industrial sites. Their sensors mapped the full scope of environmental damage while preventing corporate sabotage devices from triggering additional catastrophes. Through the command center's neural interface, Dylan and James directed the expanding restoration network with steadily increasing precision. The ancient system's adaptive protocols merged smoothly with their enhanced DNA, suggesting capabilities far beyond current colonial understanding. Dr. Venn monitored their neural patterns as they processed data streams from multiple emergencies. "Your genetic optimization is accelerating," she noted. "The interface system appears to be actively refining your connection parameters." Through the neural interface, Dylan registered a surge of urgent data from Europa 7's polar monitoring stations. Worker unit sensors penetrated deep beneath the ice cap, revealing a massive artificial structure that dwarfed previous corporate installations. Facility detected at coordinates 87, 3 north, 142, 5 east, Marcus transmitted. Structure extends 20 kilometers below surface level. James directed specialized scanning protocols through their shared connection. The ancient systems mapped a fully assembled mechanical construct, occupying the facility's central chamber, a massive artificial worm built from stolen restoration technology. "Configuration analysis complete," Marcus reported, examining the technical data. They've integrated worker unit components with modern weapons platforms. Neural connection ports match the damaged patterns we found in their test subjects. Security, Chief Karok's tactical feed showed his teams breaching the facility's outer perimeter. They encountered minimal resistance the corporation had evacuated in haste, leaving behind critical research data. Through the command center's displays, Dylan watched Dr. Santos examine recovered files from the facility's data core. "The design specifications are clear," she transmitted. "This machine was engineered to forcibly seize control of the transport tunnel network. They plan to override genetic authentication through raw processing power." Guardian units deployed containment fields around the artificial worm, while worker units began systematically dismantling its hybrid systems. Their sensors detected dangerous energy signatures where ancient and modern technologies intersected. "Multiple instability warnings," James transmitted as tremors shook the facility. "Reactor core modifications threatening local geological integrity." Dylan expanded their neural connection, directing precise containment protocols through hundreds of worker units simultaneously. The ancient systems adapted smoothly, preventing cascading reactions that could have triggered planetary-scale disasters. Administrator Parker's hologram materialized in the command center. I'm authorizing formation of the Colonial Technology Protection Agency, effective immediately. This joint human-Krenim organization will secure all restoration sites against unauthorized access. On the tactical displays, Admiral Krell's fleet moved to secure 17 identified corporate research facilities. Marcus's engineering teams deployed enhanced detection systems, revealing previously hidden installations across multiple star systems. Security breach detected in Central Archive, Marcus announced, isolating corrupted data streams. Source code indicates attempted interface bypass. The Guardian unit's defensive protocols contain the virus, preventing it from spreading through worker unit control systems. Technical analysis revealed Dr. Kane's failed attempt to create an artificial bridge around the genetic authentication requirements. These corporate scientists fundamentally misunderstood the biological components, Dr. Ross transmitted, examining the virus code. Their approach could have triggered catastrophic system failures across the restoration network. Through their neural link, Dylan and James detected automated signals emanating from asteroid belts in 3 star systems. Worker unit sensors mapped corporate production facilities, attempting to mass-produce modified units without proper control systems. Rogue machines detected in shipping lanes, Marcus reported. Hybrid units operating without containment protocols. The restoration network deployed specialized teams to neutralize the threatening constructs. Dylan coordinated precise targeting protocols while James directed containment measures around the compromised facilities. Dr. Ross transmitted new findings from her analysis of recovered corporate data. They identified key markers in the enhancement protocols but missed crucial details. The neural interface requires multi-generational adaptation. Their forced acceleration attempts explain the severe damage patterns in test subjects. Worker units implemented comprehensive containment systems around Europa 7's facility, while colonial security forces continued dismantling corporate infrastructure. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan and James felt the ancient interface system adapting to each new challenge, suggesting capabilities that exceeded current understanding. Material analysis from hybrid units complete, Marcus transmitted, examining debris from neutralized machines. These production facilities were attempting to create self-replicating mining platforms. The lack of proper control systems made them inherently unstable. The Guardian unit's sensors mapped new activation signatures spreading through the restoration network. Previously dormant protocols engaged automatically, enhancing their ability to contain threats to the ancient infrastructure. The ancient infrastructure pulsed with new activity as worker units detected an anomalous energy signature emanating from deep within the transport tunnel network. The pattern matched Dr. Ross's modified restoration protocols, a discovery that sent ripples of data through Dylan and James's neural interface. Signal traced to coordinates 23, 7 east, 156 2 north, Marcus transmitted, detecting active research systems matching Dr. Ross's equipment configuration. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan directed specialized scanning units while James coordinated with Security Chief Karok's teams. The hidden facility revealed itself layer by layer, a complete backup research station Dr. Ross had established before her capture. Data core intact, Dr. Santos reported, her fingers moving rapidly across holographic controls. Full experimental records preserved, including environmental stabilization protocols. The facility's archives streamed through the restoration network. Dr. Ross's research detailed precise methods for preventing cascading environmental failures, with technical specifications far beyond anything the corporate scientists had achieved. Guardian units integrated the enhanced security modifications, their defensive grid expanding to encompass previously vulnerable sectors. The improved protocols highlighted 23 unauthorized access points in the transport network's outer perimeter. Corporate infiltration teams. Security Chief Karok transmitted as his forces secured each location. Evidence links these breaches directly to environmental disasters across 32 colonies. In the command center, Dr. Ven's medical displays tracked unprecedented changes in Dylan and James's neural patterns. Their genetic structures achieved perfect synchronization with Dr. Ross's modified control systems, enabling simultaneous management of multiple restoration sites while maintaining stable connections across interstellar distances. These adaptations show signs of hereditary transmission, Dr. Venn noted, examining their DNA profiles. The ancient interface technology appears designed to evolve alongside colonial expansion. The CTPA's sensor networks detected unusual energy fluctuations beneath Nexus Prime's southern continent. Marcus's engineering teams discovered a corporate black site housing unstable hybrid machines crewed, attempts to merge worker unit technology with modern mining equipment. Structural integrity compromised, James transmitted as the machine's uncontrolled extraction threatened to destabilize the planetary crust. Worker units deployed specialized containment fields while methodically dismantling the dangerous prototypes. Admiral Krell's fleet transmitted urgent data from System HC-2917. The supposedly uninhabited region contained a massive corporate facility where modified worker units constructed unauthorized colonies with no environmental safeguards. Confirmed corporate intent to establish independent territory, Marcus reported, analyzing recovered files. Facility designed for rapid exploitation of frontier worlds using stolen restoration technology. The hybrid systems within the corporate installation generated cascading error warnings. Improperly integrated ancient components threatened to trigger widespread systems failures across multiple worlds. Worker units implemented emergency stabilization protocols, while Guardian units secured vital corporate databases. The recovered files provided Administrator Parker with evidence needed to authorize full asset seizure across human space. A sudden surge of malicious code attacked the Central Archive's primary nodes. The corporate leadership's final desperate assault failed against enhanced security protocols, leaving clear proof of their willing sacrifice of colonial environmental stability. Through their neural interface, Dylan and James observed new energy signatures spreading through the restoration network. Previously dormant installations showed signs of activation, their ancient systems responding to humanity's expanding technological capabilities. Dr. Ross's complete research archives revealed the true scope of potential restoration operations. The implementation requirements tested the limits of Dylan and James's enhanced control abilities as they coordinated unprecedented cooperation between colonial authorities. Multiple dormant sites preparing for activation, Marcus transmitted as Guardian units tracked the unusual energy patterns. Sensor data suggests additional ancient installations beyond current colonial records. The command centers displays mapped waves of worker units deploying across human space, their enhanced protocols steadily revealing years of environmental damage. Through their shared neural connection, Dylan and James directed the expanding restoration efforts with increasing precision as the ancient systems continued to adapt. Adaptive interface systems established thousands of simultaneous connections. Through their neural link, Dylan registered powerful activation signatures emanating from deep mining zones on Three Worlds' New Carthage, Haven's Gate, and Europa 7. Massive energy surge detected, Marcus transmitted. Ancient installations powering up at coordinates matching Dr. Ross's research data. The command centers displays mapped 3 enormous constructs, each housed within fully intact facilities far beneath the planetary surfaces. James directed specialized scanning protocols through the worker units, revealing familiar configurations. Complete technical analysis confirms these are legitimate ancient worm machines, Dr. Santos reported, examining the incoming data streams. Built with proper restoration technology and control systems, nothing like the corporate prototype. Guardian units secured the perimeter of each facility, while Marcus's engineering teams assessed the dormant machines. Their sensors penetrated layer after layer of advanced environmental systems. These installations were deliberately placed in standby mode, Marcus transmitted. Activation protocols suggest they were designed to remain dormant until colonial development reached specific environmental thresholds. Dylan felt the ancient worm's control systems respond to his enhanced genetic structure. Through their shared neural interface, he and James established preliminary connections that triggered automated maintenance sequences. Holographic displays in the medical bay tracked their DNA patterns as they synchronized with previously inactive genetic markers. Neural stability at optimal levels, Dr. Venn noted, monitoring their readings. Your enhanced capabilities appear specifically configured for these machines. The chamber beneath Europa 7 trembled as corporate mining operations triggered another seismic event. Through their expanded connection, Dylan and James tracked similar instabilities spreading across all 3 worlds. Critical structural damage detected in extraction zones, Marcus transmitted. Corporate operations have compromised planetary integrity beyond safety parameters. Security Chief Karok's tactical feed showed his teams intercepting armed infiltrators at Europa 7's facility entrance. The intruders carried corporate identification and specialized hacking equipment. Recovered data confirms Consolidated Mining Corporation located these installations years ago, Karok reported. Their attempts to bypass genetic requirements caused catastrophic failures in their test subjects. Admiral Krell's fleet deployed additional defensive platforms as long-range sensors detected 3 unregistered vessels approaching the colonial systems. Ships match known corporate black operations configurations, Marcus transmitted. Course projections indicate coordinated attempts to seize control of all 3 facilities. The Central Archive initiated activation sequences as worker units completed essential maintenance protocols. Dylan and James's enhanced connection expanded exponentially, managing thousands of simultaneous operations across 3 worlds. The ancient worm's primary systems engaged smoothly, revealing environmental restoration capabilities far beyond current colonial technology. Structural integrity of corporate mining zones reaching critical threshold, Marcus reported. Immediate intervention required to prevent widespread geological collapse. Through their neural interface, Dylan directed precise activation protocols, while James coordinated with security teams. The ancient machines hummed with building energy as dormant systems powered up one by one. Their massive forms filled enormous chambers designed to channel their movements through the planetary crusts. Multiple corporate vessels detected entering Haven's Gate system, Admiral Krell transmitted, deploying intercept squadrons to protect restoration facilities. The command centers displays mapped waves of data flowing through the ancient machines as their advanced protocols assess the full scope of environmental damage. The worm construct's technical systems adapted automatically, generating specialized restoration procedures for each compromised region. Guardian units established overlapping defensive grids around the facilities, while worker units prepared guidance systems for the massive machines. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan and James felt the incredible power building within the ancient worms as activation sequences reached completion. Seismic sensors detected new instabilities spreading from corporate mining sites across all three worlds. The ancient machine's activation had become a race against cascading geological failures threatening colonial settlements. Final maintenance protocols complete, Marcus transmitted as worker units withdrew from the activation chambers. Ancient worm systems reaching full operational status. The neural interface expanded exponentially as Dylan and James established direct control connections with all three machines simultaneously. Through their shared link, they felt the incredible complexity of the ancient systems preparing to address centuries of accumulated environmental damage. Security, Chief Karok's teams secured the outer perimeter as the massive chamber doors began to open, revealing the true scale of the fully activated worm constructs. Worker units mapped their path through the compromised mining zones, while Guardian units maintained an expanding defensive screen against corporate forces still intent on seizing control of the ancient machines. The command center's displays tracked the worms' initial movements as their enormous forms began to align with the damaged geological structures. Through their neural connection, Dylan and James guided the ancient machines with increasing precision, while coordinating with colonial security forces working to protect the unprecedented restoration operation from corporate interference. The ancient worm startup sequences triggered alarms across colonial monitoring stations. Seismic sensors registered accelerating instabilities through New Carthage's mining districts as Dylan and James entered the specialized control chambers. Neural interface synchronization at 98%, Dr. Venn transmitted, tracking their bio-readings as they connected to the machines. Genetic markers aligning with control systems. The massive chamber beneath New Carthage trembled. Through their neural link, Dylan felt the kilometer-long construct powering up, its processing nodes illuminating in sequence. The worm's segmented form filled the ancient facility as its environmental analysis systems came online. Primary containment seals disengaging, Marcus transmitted. Structural reinforcement fields active. The machine emerged from its housing, advanced sensors mapping the network of compromised mining tunnels. Its specialized field generators activated, stabilizing collapsing sections while converting industrial waste into raw materials. Material conversion rates exceeding projected parameters, James transmitted through their shared connection. Worker units integrating modified restoration protocols. On Haven's Gate, Guardian units intercepted corporate strike teams attempting to breach the facility's outer defenses. The intruders deployed stolen security signatures, their prototype neural interface equipment sending corrupted activation signals. Multiple casualties detected, Security Chief Karok reported as ancient security measures triggered. Corporate forces equipped with experimental interface technology. The recovered equipment revealed coordinates buried in its transmission logs. Hidden research installation identified in Kuiper Belt region, Marcus transmitted, analyzing the data. Evidence of ongoing weapons development program. Europa 7's worm construct activated its deep scanning arrays, revealing critical damage throughout the ice crust structure. Worker units evacuated threatened colonial facilities as the machine's material processors converted toxic mining byproducts into reinforcement compounds. Structural integrity dropping in sectors 7 through 12, Marcus transmitted. Emergency stabilization protocols engaging. Admiral Krell's defensive screen intercepted 3 corporate heavy cruisers on approach to New Carthage. Their experimental weapons systems targeted the active worm constructs with precise electromagnetic pulses. Corporate vessels deploying modified disruption fields, Krell transmitted. Guardian units adjusting defensive grid parameters. The ancient machines' control systems adapted automatically, their security protocols proving resistant to corporate countermeasures. Through their neural connection, Dylan and James maintained precise control as the worms continued their restoration work. The Central Archive's detection grid highlighted unusual energy signatures across colonial space. Marcus's engineering teams identified 27 additional sites matching the worm facility's power profiles. Sensor data confirms networked installation pattern, Marcus transmitted. Ancient systems designed for sequential activation based on colonial development markers. Through their expanded neural link, Dylan accessed the worm's technical databases. The machines contained extensive environmental restoration data, including advanced industrial waste processing techniques. Each new connection increased the strain on their enhanced genetic structures. Neural load approaching upper threshold, Dr. Venn warned, monitoring their vital signs. Recommend limiting database access intervals. The worm constructs moved with increasing coordination, their massive forms systematically addressing centuries of accumulated environmental damage. Worker units integrated seamlessly with their operations, while Guardian units maintained an expanding defensive screen. Corporate research vessel signatures detected in outer system, Admiral Krell transmitted, initiating sweep pattern to locate hidden installation. The ancient machine's effectiveness validated Dr. Ross's theories about coordinated environmental intervention. Their advanced capabilities demonstrated solutions for sustainable colonial development, though accessing their full potential would require careful management of the neural interface system's demands. Through their shared connection, Dylan and James guided the worm's precise movements while colonial forces secured their operation zones. The massive machines continued their vital work as security teams began methodically searching frontier systems for remaining corporate threats. Deep scanning arrays from all three worm constructs converged on an anomalous energy signature emanating from Eris. The massive dwarf planet's surface concealed elaborate shielding systems, but the ancient machine's sensors penetrated the carefully layered defenses. Hidden installation detected, Marcus transmitted, analyzing the incoming data. Energy patterns match recovered corporate research profiles, multiple unauthorized worker unit signatures present. Through their neural interface, Dylan and James tracked waves of data flooding the command center's displays. The facility's layout revealed specialized laboratories, genetic modification chambers, and storage vaults filled with stolen ancient technology. Admiral Krell's fleet established a blockade around Eris, while Security Chief Karok's teams breached the facility's outer barriers. Guardian units neutralized automated defense systems as colonial forces pushed through reinforced access tunnels. Corporate hybrid construct detected, Karok transmitted. Ancient technology integrated with modern weapon systems. Neural interface components salvaged from damaged worker units. The hybrid machine broadcast interference signals targeting all three active worm constructs. Dylan felt the disruption ripple through their neural connection as emergency isolation protocols engaged automatically. Neural pattern adaptation confirmed, Dr. Venn noted, monitoring their bioreadings. Enhanced genetic structures responding to corporate interference attempts. Worker units discovered massive storage tanks beneath the facility's lower levels. Industrial waste from multiple colonies filled the chambers, powering experimental systems that threatened to contaminate the Kuiper Belt's vital water resources. Critical instability detected in corporate hybrid systems, Marcus transmitted as engineering teams analyzed the construct's architecture. Improper ancient tech integration creating dangerous feedback loops. Containment priorities updated. Corrupted worker unit designs activated throughout the facility, their targeting systems attacking indiscriminately. Guardian units deployed specialized containment fields while colonial forces pushed toward the central labs. Corporate executives accessing emergency transport systems, Karok reported. Pursuit teams engaging. Dr. Kane and 3 senior scientists in custody. The ancient worms restoration protocols expanded through the tunnel network, transmitting stabilizing energy fields across planetary distances. Their coordinated operations counteracted cascading infrastructure failures triggered by corporate sabotage devices. Dylan directed precise interface commands through their shared neural link, while James coordinated with security teams containing the hybrid constructs building instability. The machine's power systems approached critical failure levels as colonial forces secured the main facility sections. Multiple shuttles detected leaving outer docking bays, Admiral Krell transmitted. Corporate vessels entering FTL trajectories toward system edge, tracking systems engaged. The command centers displays mapped spreading contamination from the corporate waste storage systems. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan and James felt the ancient worm's restoration capabilities adapt to address the expanding environmental threat while maintaining their primary planetary operations. Warning indicators flashed across tactical feeds as the hybrid construct's unstable systems continued deteriorating. Its corrupted neural interface components broadcast increasingly erratic energy pulses that threatened surrounding space installations. Containment fields at maximum capacity, Marcus transmitted. Hybrid machine approaching cascade failure threshold. Emergency protocols engaging. Through their shared connection, Dylan and James worked to stabilize the environmental damage while colonial forces pursued the escaped corporate leaders. The ancient worms maintained their vital restoration work as the immediate crisis demanded increasingly precise control responses. Through their neural interface, Dylan and James detected critical power fluctuations emanating from the corporate hybrid construct. Its unstable systems broadcast waves of disrupted energy that threatened to trigger catastrophic reactions in the surrounding ice formations. Hybrid machine entering terminal collapse sequence, Marcus transmitted. Energy discharge patterns indicate complete neural interface breakdown. Multiple Kuiper objects at risk. Dylan expanded his connection to all 3 ancient worms simultaneously, their enhanced genetic structures automatically adjusting to handle the increased neural load. James coordinated precision field deployments as the machines projected overlapping containment barriers around the compromised facility. Evacuation of non-essential personnel complete, Karok transmitted. Research archives secured. Dr. Kane's personal logs recovered intact. The command centers displays tracked waves of contamination spreading from ruptured storage tanks. Worker units moved with practiced efficiency, processing toxic materials before they could penetrate deeper into Eris's ice deposits. The ancient worms extended their restoration field through the transport network, creating an invisible wall that blocked industrial pollutants from reaching neighboring objects. Marcus's engineering teams analyzed data streams from the hybrid's primary control node. Direct neural override required for safe shutdown, he transmitted. Corporate failsafes prevent remote deactivation. Enhanced genetic structures show adaptive response to increased load, Dr. Venn noted, monitoring their vital signs. Ancient safety protocols engaging automatically. Dylan felt the neural interface expand as they established emergency connections to the unstable hybrid. Its corrupted systems fought against their controlled shutdown attempt, emergency protocols firing in random sequences. Corporate vessels detected on intercept trajectory, Admiral Krell transmitted. Prototype disruption weapons detected, moving to engage. The Guardian units adjusted their defensive screen as colonial forces pursued the fleeing ships. Through their shared link, Dylan and James maintained precise control while initiating the hybrid's shutdown sequence. Its unstable field generators pulsed with increasing intensity. Processing Dr. Kane's research data, Marcus transmitted. Unauthorized neural routing through salvaged worker components confirmed. Explained severe system instability. The ancient worms coordinated their restoration work with fluid precision. Their combined operations revealed new capabilities as they projected stabilizing fields through zero-gravity conditions. Warning indicators flashed across tactical displays as the hybrid's power core approached critical threshold. Corporate vessels disabled, Krell reported. Prototype weapons secured. Additional evidence recovered linking executives to multiple environmental crimes. Dylan guided shutdown commands through the hybrid's degraded neural pathways, while James maintained their connection to the legitimate constructs. The machine's emergency systems triggered chaotic energy discharges that tested the containment barriers. Unusual energy signatures radiated from previously identified worm facilities scattered across human space. The ancient machines responded to cascading environmental damage, their dormant systems preparing for coordinated intervention. Sequential activation detected at 27 sites, Marcus transmitted. Ancient safeguards engaging automatically. The hybrid's control systems yielded to their carefully sequenced shutdown procedure. Its unstable field generators powered down in controlled stages as worker units maintained contamination barriers around the facility. Through their neural connection, Dylan and James felt the strain of managing multiple interface channels simultaneously. The ancient machine's safety protocols adapted smoothly, allowing them to complete the dangerous shutdown while colonial forces secured the surrounding area. The command center tracked the hybrid's final power fluctuations as its systems entered complete shutdown. Guardian units maintained their defensive screen while engineering teams began extracting the machine's corrupted components. Pursuing remaining corporate vessels through outer system, Krell transmitted. Multiple signatures detected entering unexplored space. The ancient worms continued their vital restoration work across affected worlds as colonial security forces prepared for systematic sweeps of frontier systems. Their expanded capabilities demonstrated unprecedented potential for addressing large-scale environmental threats. Through their shared neural link, Dylan and James coordinated the machine's precise operations while monitoring the growing network of activated facilities. Each new connection revealed additional layers of advanced restoration protocols as humanity worked to master the ancient technology. Through their neural link, Dylan and James detected additional control chambers activating beneath the Eris facility. The specialized interfaces pulsed with familiar energy signatures, calling them to establish direct connections with the failing hybrid construct. Modified control chambers online, Marcus transmitted. Genetic authentication confirmed, ready for final shutdown sequence. Dylan and James moved swiftly through reinforced corridors as worker units processed streams of toxic runoff. The ancient worms maintained precise containment fields, their overlapping barriers protecting ice formations from spreading contamination. The control chambers hummed with active interface components. Dylan settled into the primary connection node while James took position at the secondary station. Neural tendrils extended automatically, establishing direct links to the hybrid's unstable systems. Enhanced DNA pattern synchronizing, Dr. Venn noted, monitoring their bioreadings. Perfect adaptation to interface load. Waves of corrupted data flooded their shared connection as they navigated the hybrid's emergency protocols. The machine systems fought against their shutdown attempts, triggering alerts across engineering displays. Multiple hybrid worker units activating, Karok transmitted. Defense teams engaging. Maintain shutdown sequence. James isolated critical power nodes while Dylan traced the flawed deactivation protocols. The corporate scientists' attempts at replicating the original shutdown procedure had introduced dangerous instabilities throughout the system. Routing excess energy through containment grid, Marcus transmitted. Ancient worms compensating for power fluctuations. Worker units moved with practiced efficiency, extracting industrial waste before power surges could trigger uncontrolled reactions. The ancient machines extended their restoration field through surrounding ice deposits, stabilizing affected orbital bodies. Through their enhanced connection, Dylan identified the hybrid's primary control node. Engineering teams prepared extraction equipment as James systematically disabled remaining failsafes. Last corporate vessel detected near system edge, Admiral Krell transmitted. Regional Director Morton confirmed aboard, moving to intercept. The hybrid systems yielded to their carefully sequenced commands. Its unstable field generators powered down in controlled stages, while worker units maintained contamination barriers. Control node isolated, Marcus transmitted. Beginning extraction of corrupted interface components. Engineering teams worked with careful precision, removing sections of damaged technology while preserving crucial evidence. The extracted systems revealed systematic attempts to weaponize restoration capabilities. Corporate vessel disabled, Krell reported. Morton and remaining executives in custody. Research data cores recovered intact. The ancient worms completed their initial restoration phase across affected colonies. Their success triggered activation sequences at 12 additional sites, creating an expanding network of environmental management systems. Genetic stability confirmed, Dr. Venn transmitted, analyzing their medical data. Enhanced structures show perfect adaptation for multi-site interface operations. Through their shared connection, Dylan and James felt the strain ease as the hybrid systems entered final shutdown. The dangerous procedure had prevented catastrophic failure while securing proof of corporate crimes. Guardian units swept through cleared facility sections, dismantling remaining hybrid technology. Worker units implemented permanent safeguards around restoration sites as colonial forces secured the surrounding area. Complete records recovered from corporate data cores, Marcus transmitted. Evidence of environmental violations across 32 worlds. The command center tracked activation, waves spreading through previously dormant facilities. Each new connection revealed additional restoration protocols as the ancient machines coordinated their vital work. Dylan and James maintained precise control, while the three original worm constructs resumed their primary operations. Through their enhanced interface, they monitored the expanding network of environmental management systems across human space. Establishing Environmental Restoration Authority protocols, Colonial Administrator Parker transmitted. Dr. Ross confirmed as director. Implementation of ancient technology safeguards beginning. The ancient machines continued their coordinated work, processing industrial waste into useful materials while stabilizing colonial environments. Their success validated careful integration of enhanced human operators with recovered restoration systems. Through their neural connection, Dylan and James guided the worm construct's smooth operations as the immediate crisis subsided. The expanding network of activated facilities demonstrated unprecedented capabilities for sustainable colonial development, even as security forces pursued remaining corporate threats through unexplored space.